Local recording.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, local recording.
I got that going. Let me get to share.
Don't forget local recording.
It's on.
Mark B with 15 bosses. And did you use the right to cover on the TPS report?
All right, let's see what happens. So I dropped the bit rate to 4K.
4K.
4K bits.
That's what the CoCo had.
Yep.
Wow, it's still red yellow.
Yeah.
That really sucks.
Let's try an intro.
No. Ah!
CoCoTALK would like to thank our patrons who sponsor our show, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Al Hartman, Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Blair Ledoux, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, D. Bruce Moore, Davey Mitchell, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Zebke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, Jenna Farron, Ken Riker, Kyle Etter, Malfunct, Michael Pittsley, Rick Hewlin, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Rob Inman, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, Backyard Shed Gang, Tom C, Tom S, Tim Lindner, Tom Heron, and Tony C. Thank you ever so much, patrons. CoCoTALK is an unscripted live broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own and not necessarily those of the CoCoTALK show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds encouraged, sense of humor recommended. If any off-color comments were made, we're sorry.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 208, where apparently I have dial-up today. Don't worry, we'll upload the good one later.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Boy, this show's going to be more painful than usual for people to watch.
I didn't think that was possible, but you're right.
It's gonna be choppier than a Guinness 2 knife commercial.
It is.
Jim Brain recommended a Poke 65495, 0.
I think we need this 65497 at this point.
Right. So thank you, Cox.
So for those who are actually catching our jerky video and audio here, we're having some bandwidth issues. We're actually losing about 3/4 of all the frames we're trying to transmit. So we're making a local recording. So if it turns out really bad on the live stream, we'll post it up afterwards from the local recording. So hopefully you guys can actually understand what we're saying if you really want to do that.
But hey, at least we'll have the chat.
25% is good.
We call this lossy compression. That's what we call it.
Right. Wow. Okay. Panel introductions. All right. Well, let's stop let's just stop. All right. Starting in the upper right-hand corner. Where are my buttons? What's that? Upper right-hand corner, we have Nick Marotta.
Hello. Glad to be here.
And this is where I would push this button here.
Nick Marotta.
Hello again.
Nice.
Still glad to be here.
We'll get it together yet. Next over, Mark Overhoster.
Hey there. Glad to be here.
All right. Next over from that is Patrick Euland.
We must endeavor to persevere.
Look forward to your presentation later on. And then last over there on the right-hand side is Sloopy with that massive MC-10. It's about 4 times the size of the CoCo sitting above it.
Greetings. Yes, that is a new thing that I just made the other day. It's a case for the Raspberry Pi 4.
Well, I'm thinking that MC-10 can hold a much bigger door now. All right, down a row over to the left, John Laurie.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
And then the man with the news, our own L. Curtis Boyle.
Hello, everyone. And if anybody's watching and in the chats of various things like Twitch and YouTube, if you want to let us know, is at least the audio going out fairly smoothly at this point? Because I've seen a few complaints about the slideshow everybody's watching at this moment. So I just want to make sure there's some content getting through.
And yes, I did reboot my entire internet. Next over is Ron Delvo.
How you doing? We're here, present.
Okay. Next over on his way to who the heck knows where, Jason Reichard.
Hey everybody, and I just in regards to the bandwidth issues, I'd also like to point out
Hey, if you know this keeps up, I'll just switch over to my phone.
Next slide, please.
Bing.
All right, next row over is Paul Shoemaker.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
I hear you have a presentation today on some project you're working on.
Oh, I hope it's not a presentation, but I can definitely talk about the game that I just released.
Okay, sounds good. We look forward to it.
Cool.
And skip over me. That means the last person is David Ladd.
Oh, why, yes, everybody's ready for today's train wreck, and we're already started off with an engine that's not running at full capacity. Now, let's get this show on the road, and hopefully people don't have seizures from the stuttering. All right, everybody, let's go.
We're already on the cross ties.
I'm crossing my fingers that this will start to, fix itself after a while, but I doubt it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm still running about 2K here. I've already dropped the bandwidth to a third of what we usually do.
Would you like me to stream from my MC-10?
It might help.
Have you tried rebooting your USR 56K modem?
Yes.
I think Kevin Holloway's got the right attitude. He said, at least it's all downhill from here. So we have a direction. We're following it.
That's right. We're going down. Okay. Probably before we go off the air totally, let's mention next weekend, 24th, next Saturday is the Glenside meetup. It's going to be 7 p.m. Chicago time, Central Daylight Time, on the usual BlueJeans channel. That's all I know about it. Anybody else have anything to say?
Do they have bandwidth?
Yeah.
I hope so.
We'll find out.
I hope so. Okay.
Got a few reports saying the audio is fairly good, so that's at least they can hear us. Well, maybe that's a curse.
We're sorry.
Pleasant thing,
but if you could make a face, because every once in a while it holds on Facebook.
Great. Let's see. All right, so shall we go right into our Game On challenge?
Yes, sir.
All right. I hear Coco Thoughts has some ideas on the game.
Just when the show couldn't get any worse.
I know it. Let's just dive off the deep end.
I'll say.
And now, Coco Thoughts.
by Samuel Gimes.
Gaze on. Why did you steal my supplies tonight? Look like an ogre. Do you go and sell them just to cause me spite? Gaze on. You don't have to sneak in there tonight. Sell my stuff for money. You don't care if it's wrong or if it's right. Gaze on. Steal my stuff tonight. 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 Gaze on. Steal my stuff tonight.
That was as off key as this show's bandwidth is.
Perfect to go along with our bandwidth issues.
All right, well, let's next button.
High Score Challenge with Nick Marotta.
All right, and welcome to another week of results. This week we played Gazon with 23 scores submitted. R. Ellen Murphy, 410. Mr. Dave 6309, 920. Cat Lord, 1010. Coco Discord user, 1080. Rich N, 1990. Boat of Car, 3520. Louis, 3780. Frodo NL, 3950. Tom C, 4360. Just Mike, 4510. Jim Rye, 4630. 8 Bits in the Basement, 5160. C. Duras, 5190. Kieran, 5740. Canadian Retro Things, 5980. Low Level, 6260. Tasman, 7380. Ken Reichard, 9510. Rick U, 14250. L. Curtis Boyle, 16340. David Craker, 17660. Me, 17920. And the number one score this week belongs to Buck Owens with 22,950. Great scores, everybody, and thank you for all the participation.
CoCoTALK salutes Buck Owens.
All right, Mark, you're
All
on
right.
top of it. Excellent. Just sharing my
That's
screen.
value added for you.
Sure is.
Gotta stop sharing mine.
It should be
It's
coming
not
up.
like anybody can see it anyway, but go ahead.
Should be coming up. Well, that my the game on results video seemed to be okay because it's such low motion, so it was okay for the bandwidth. So anyway, here I come up. All right. So yeah, we had a good week this week. 23 scores.
Rick did pretty well.
Yes, he did. Yeah, congratulations, Rick.
Oh, thanks. Not sure why.
So I was not able to find any high scores for the game in Rainbow, at least, but I did find this review, and they liked it. They made an error in review saying you could only shoot in 8 directions, which is false. With the analog joystick, which is all there was pretty much back then. People were using. There was
Atari adapters back then. I wonder if this guy actually was using one of those and didn't realize it doesn't give you the full range.
I wonder, because there's definitely 32 directions.
Yeah.
So
that was actually one of its advertising points. If you look at their ads, they were specifically mentioning in the early ads that you had more than 8 directions. That was a high point of the game.
Or Durecitans, as he actually said. Ooh. Scriptset must not have a spell check.
Yeah. Either that's the name of the alien race or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
The Directicons.
But he says it's a pretty good buy for anybody who likes arcade-like games. And all right. So thanks again to Canadian Retro Things, who featured the Game On Challenge on his channel this past week. Check out his channel for retro goodness, including CoCo and other platforms. So thanks again, Ken from Canadian Retro Things. So yeah, this is a game I played as a kid. I don't think it was. I think it was pretty not really well known among our community this week. And,
yeah, well, it wasn't from one of the big publishers, actually. I think that was part of the reason. Like everybody knows Tom Mix and Spectral Associates and some, Dicom, that kind of thing. But this was made by a more obscure company.
And the fact I didn't find any reviews, and I searched, around the times the review happened, I didn't find any scores, and I searched all the magazines from around when the review was taken, and there were none that I found. So maybe it was just one of those games that flew under the radar. But yeah, and I had no idea. It was revealed last week. This was at least the idea was based on a game called Ripoff by Cinematronics, where you defend, vector graphics, and you defend your load of whatever those are, and shoot at things come to steal them. So I had no idea.
And actually, I had to correct my games page entry on that because somebody had mentioned about half a year ago that it was based on a game called Ripoff 2, which I'd never seen either. And I totally forgot to make the change. So I actually did it this past week. So my game page entry for Gazon now reflects. Also, we don't know if it's pronounced Gazon or Gazon. I have no idea.
So we're going to do both ways, and that way we'll be right 50% of the time.
Yeah. It's kind of like our bandwidth. Go ahead.
So yeah, we had a couple of people who weren't too fond of the game. They played anyway, which I appreciate. But yeah, a bit of division on this game. Some people thought it was fun, and some people it wasn't their cup of tea, which is A-OK. I expect that when games are chosen, that not everything will appeal to everybody. But overall, but still a good turnout. 22 people. I was very pleased. As for strategy, what I tended to do, I was on top for a good part of the week till Buck Owens swooped in at the end and stole it from me. But I kind of half expected that would happen, so I wasn't totally surprised. Although it's partly my fault because I told him how with an analog joystick it's easier because you get the 32 directions, and
I've discovered don't reveal your secrets until the show.
Exactly. Yeah, play with a paddle. It works the best. So
play with an 8-direction Atari centering joystick. That's what I would have said.
But for me, what I do was I hung around the middle as much as I could, and I'd try to swarm the little UFO guy as early as I could.
Right.
So I'd leave my center position to go run into him, and then zip back to the middle and take out the guys that are taking out the things in the middle. And I think I made it to level 6 was as far as I got for my 17,000 score.
Yeah, it was the same level I got to.
The scores would increase with each level because the guys would become more valuable. So your score would, as you got further, your score would rise faster. So,
yeah. My favorite gameplay mechanic, nothing to do with strategy, but the actual makes the game interesting, is that you've got the 2 different kinds of aliens. They all steal your stuff. But that saucer-like guy, you have to hit him. You can't shoot him. And the other ones you shoot. But if you hit them, you kill them too. And you have lives, per se, in the game. But when you hit those other guys, you get randomly teleported somewhere else. So all of a sudden you have to really quickly, figure out where you are and then try to get back into things and protect your whatever the treasure is type thing. So it has an interesting gameplay mechanic that actually made it, for me, quite fun actually, which is, and ramps up in difficulty as you go. But for such a simple concept, for me, it was quite fun.
Sometimes I'd ram into the guy if he was the last one. And it was easier just to ram into him instead of shooting him.
Yeah, because if he's the last guy on the screen, you have time to get back to the center to protect everything.
But once that saucer moonlander guy comes out there, you got to head for him because you can only approach him from closeness. If you get bounced to the corner, you can shoot the other guys from the edge of the screen. But once that guy gets out of your range, he's got your guy and he's gone. And he cheats.
According to the review, level 2, the enemies get smarter at evading you. So when we play on level 1 just to make this approachable for everybody, but apparently if you play on the higher levels, it gets even more, as would expect, it gets more difficult. But it gets more difficult in that the enemies will evade you, and the 3rd level apparently you shoot half as fast. So the game.
Oh, that'd be a problem.
The game.
It does have auto fire, which is a nice feature. That I think Ken originally, the guy's video reviewing here, I think he originally did not know that it was auto fire, so he was hammering on the fire button like mad.
Yeah, because you can't move when you're firing, so you think, I've got to let off the fire button a lot so I can move. And
I'd leave the fire button down all the time, even when I was sitting in the middle and I had my joystick centered, so I wasn't really firing anywhere. but I just leave it pressed, and then just the whole time I was playing.
Yeah, you let go when you have to move to get the saucer.
Yeah, yeah.
This is one of the games that actually the Black Beauty is one of the better controllers for. It's one of the ones that's designed for it, I think, more so. Partly because of the analog controls where you have the 32 different directions you can fire.
Yeah. Well,
plus, go ahead.
Other computers at the time, like VIC-20 and that, were they digital? Like, were they digital control, or at least
most were digital? I think the Apple IIs was analog.
So
but I think like Ataris, Commodores, and stuff, I think were all digital, weren't they?
VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 use the same style joysticks as the Atari 2600. The paddles were analog.
Paddle, yeah. Commodore 64 has
paddles. The paddles. So much like how you have, in modern days, you have the Wii who had the motion control, so people want to take advantage of that. Probably people saw the analog as a bit of an advantage in some ways and wanted to write games that catered to that, I would imagine. Because we have some really good games that are in a digital, like Double Back and this one, and a number of others that work really well with analog.
Yeah, Polaris is another one, or Defense, or some of the Missile Command clones. And
yeah,
Project Nebula kind of requires them. Skiing.
I just found this game really tiring. I couldn't play it that long. And then
tiring because you're getting frustrated or bored, or what?
Well, no, it's just, I don't know, somehow the way that you have to, that I tense up on it. A lot of games I can relax and play, but this one I just couldn't. And so after 15, 20 minutes, it's like, I'm done.
So we had a comment, I think it's serious. Wait, you can run into the aliens without dying? Maybe that was my problem.
Right.
Had you listened to Game On last week, I made sure to mention that, but that's okay. Or maybe you forgot. Somebody else heard me say that, but by the time they played, they forgot, and they also didn't realize you could run into the aliens. So yeah, definitely an interesting mechanic, because often most games running into aliens is fatal, but in this one, you just get penalized by hyperspacing, which I really liked.
Yeah. So, now, just to go back to Nick's original comment earlier here, figuring that this was a fairly rarely played game in the CoCo community because it was from a small publisher. Now, how many people on the panel had played this game before, or seen it before? I had, for sure, obviously, and so was Nick.
Yeah, I had, yeah.
Was it new to everybody else?
Crickets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't have a chance to play it. It looks actually really intriguing, but I didn't play it last week. But I had never heard of it before, which was why when I saw it, I didn't automatically think about, I'm going to go play this because it's been a long time, because I'd never even heard of it before.
Right. Well, that's good, because that's one of the goals, is to find games that we may have not experienced back in the day.
We must have had a uniquely Canadian piracy ring for this one here, Nick. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was at the mercy of whatever the pirates had available, and this was one of them.
Because everybody around here had Gaze On. I remember that. We used to play at the club every once in a while.
Yeah. Until the CoCo 3, and I could actually afford to buy stuff, and then I bought games. But for the CoCo 2, most of my stuff was, unfortunately.
Hey, sometimes you have the game, but you just never play it. I mean, you see it on your directory, but you don't click it.
Yeah.
I think most of us here, anyway, we didn't have that. We tried everything, and if a game you didn't like it, you never played it again. But we tried everything once, especially at club meetings, because people have certain favorite types of games. You got to check this one out here we haven't seen before. And the club, I mean, I will be honest, our club did purchase quite a few games on its own that we put into our library. People could, sign out like a library book type thing. You come to a meeting one week and then you bring it back the next week. And we did purchase, dozens and dozens of games legitimately. But
yeah, Amigos Retro Gaming, never heard of it. David Craker, never heard of it. So yeah, definitely not a well-known game. So
interesting.
I'm hoping that the people who discovered it, that you guys you enjoyed it. And like I said, not everybody will, but most of the people seem to enjoy it. We had a good battle anyway for scores this week. So and I would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for those meddling kids. All right, so are we ready to move on to talk about next week's game?
Yes.
All right. So next week we're doing a CoCo 3 game, and I'm not even going to ask if you know what this game is. It's going to be instantly recognizable.
Pyramix,
which I had no idea existed. So I got a request for the request was for a Cuthbert clone, and I believe that was by Sixie who asked for that. So I was thinking, okay, the only Cuber clone I ever played as a kid was Blockhead, which was not the greatest. But I knew that CoCo had quite a few clones. I did a search in Google for color computer Google Cubert clones. I wanted to at least find some and try them out and see which one's the best. And this Pure Mix came up in the hits. I'm like, oh my goodness, a CoCo 3 version. So I tried it, and it's a good game, and very close to the arcade. The only thing I noticed on this one is on the second or third level, there's a flashing square. One of the squares flashes and it moves around, and you can't land on that. I don't remember if that was in the game Cubert or not.
I don't remember either. I haven't played the arcade version in eons.
But for those of you who haven't played Cubert, basically the goal is to jump on all the tops of the cubes and change them to the target color. So in this case, you got to turn them. They started out red, and you got to jump on all of them to turn them purple. And then later on, you have to jump on them twice or more to turn them a color. You're allowed to jump on anything that's green. So there's a green ball, which freezes time. There's a one green guy who's harmless. There's another green guy who turns the cubes back to their original color. So you want to get him. And then there's these weird ones that jump on the sides of the cubes. It gets really weird. So that's basically Cubert. And I'm assuming that this has those features as well. I didn't play it a whole lot because I didn't want to practice too much.
What does the rainbow circles do?
Oh, you jump on those and it floats you back up to the top. So what you really use those for is that purple ball will turn into a snake, and the snake follows you. So what you can do is when the snake is following you, you jump onto the disc, you'll float up to the top, and the snake will jump off trying to get you, and he'll fall to his demise. So they teleport you back up to the top, basically, is what those discs do. And
you basically lure the snake into following you, and then you jump on that disc, you go up, and he goes down into the abyss and dies.
Yeah, once you use the disc, it's gone. So
now a bit of trivia on this one. This was one of the earliest CoCo 3 games. Frodo was actually going to be working on he just did his history of the CoCo 1 games for the first year, and this one qualifies for the CoCo 3. Because this was actually released in 1987, not too long after the CoCo 3 came out, like within 6 to 8 months. So it was a very rapid development for a machine that nobody had used before.
Wow.
So it's one of the earlier classics.
Yeah, I had no idea this existed. One thing you'll notice is the jumping is fast. I believe it's faster than the arcade. So that's normal. That's just the way it is. Like when you jump, you move pretty quickly. And in this screenshot, it looks like the ball has green legs, but it doesn't. There's a green guy behind. And so like I said, that's one of the green guys that you can safely jump on, and it gets rid of him.
This little character shouldn't lie anymore. His nose is pretty long as it is.
Exactly. The smile looks kind of weird to me because in the arcade, he didn't have a mouth. I don't believe. So it's kind of weird to see him smile.
He talked to Blue Streak in the arcade too. They used to
do
weird balloons with all the exclamation marks and stuff. And
is there much sound in this one?
Minimal. It's not a huge amount. There's no background music or anything, but there's some sound. Yeah.
And it can use keyboard or joystick. I see they're here using the keyboard here. If you use a joystick, it's diagonals, so it doesn't work too well with the digital stick. It works well with the deluxe joystick because it's got the nice corners.
So is this a 16K game?
It's
CoCo 3, 128K.
What I meant was the size of it on the ROM.
Oh, I have no idea.
13 granules.
Was this a disc or?
It was disc or cassette. I can't remember if it was cassette or not. For disc, for sure. And the company that put it out was actually not known for doing games. In fact, I think this is the only game they ever released. They were usually doing utilities and stuff. Because it was issued by, who was it?
Color Venture.
Color Venture, yeah, which sold it through Dr. Prebble's programs, I think, originally.
And if you get the choice for start level 1, obviously.
Say Jordan's name.
Jordan. It's easy.
Jordan Zvetskov.
There you go. Zvetskov.
Or Zvetkov.
Good name.
Zvetkov.
That's what happens when I sneeze.
Yeah, bless you.
Aaron in the chat mentions the arcade game also had a pinball knocker in it. Gottlieb of pinball fame made this in the arcade, so they added that in.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that effect. So unless you get a knocker attachment, maybe Mr. Dave can make you a cartridge that will interface with it. And
it's an early serial number.
Yeah. All right. So that is our game for next week. And thank you, everybody, for your participation this week. And thanks, Mark. And thank you, panel. I'll see you next week.
I have to give a plug to Mark Bosley, our streamer, who's having the bandwidth issues here, because I just noticed on the live stream slideshow that he's labeled this now as the 2400 baud edition of CoCoTALK.
There you go.
Go down to 300 before long. Okay. Ready for some Game On news?
I think so.
All right.
Get the rates.
All right, take it away, Curtis.
Actually, saw on the stream we had a burst of bandwidth there. Part of the unrolling of the Game On placard actually worked.
Yeah, I occasionally get a little green, but we're basically a 71% loss on the frames.
Well, that's an improvement. We started off with between the 75 to 80 loss, so slowly getting better. Okay, so actually we've got a fair bit of Game On news this week. Actually, we got a fair bit of regular news this week, so it's kind of interesting because the last few weeks have been pretty lean. So our first one here is actually our special guest, Paul Shoemaker, to talk about. For those who don't know, Paul's done a lot of CoCo games in the past, 15 years. You've released a lot of basic games for free.
That's right.
Because I remember you did some like solitaire games back around 2007 or something like that, and you've just kind of been doing them on and off ever since.
Yeah, there's something about card games that appeals to me because designing the cards is fun, and then displaying them on the screen is not terribly difficult to do, even in assembly language. And so it's an easy project that is fun.
Have you thought about making a game regarding shoes?
I ought to.
It would be a perfect thing.
It seems appropriate somehow.
Yeah, it does.
Now, in the interest of the slideshow here, I'm actually going to pause the video rather than just let it play, just so people can see the different screens, and then we know what they're seeing. So this is the title screen for your new version of Poker Squares. Now, we should mention you did a version for the CoCo 3. Was it April or not April? June or July last year?
Last year, July, I released a version of the CoCo 3 that was in 16 colors, 320 by 225. I actually use Nick Marentes. He has that all those peaks and pokes that you can put in to use the additional width or height of the H screen in BASIC, and so I needed the extra space because the height that I designed the cards that was just a little bit too high to fit 5 cards high on the normal 192 high screen. So I used his information and stuff that he shared to get it out to 225, and I had fun writing that, and it was easy. And the cards in that game were based off of a really cool design by a pixel artist named Mike Myers. And I remember at the time that some folks were asking for a CoCo 2 version, and of course there are already CoCo 2 versions of Poker Squares, but I finally got a sort of a wild hair and decided to write it. Maybe 5 weeks ago, I started on this one.
Now and this one's a hybrid too. It's got some assembly language in it to help speed certain things up, but it's mostly basic. Is that correct?
It's the core program that actually, where you place the cards and it calculates if you've got a good poker hand. All of that's in BASIC. Everything that puts something onto the screen is basically in assembly language, and that's the same way that it was for the CoCo 3 version as well. And in fact, the core code that runs the game is exactly the same between the CoCo 3 version and the CoCo 2 version. I just replaced all of the graphics commands and assembly language subroutines that run in the back end. One of them, the CoCo 3 one has the H screen version, and the CoCo 2 version has these P mode 4.
My wife was impressed. I showed her some of the graphics on here, and I said, "Isn't that pretty cool for the color computer?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's pretty nice."
Oh, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Really good.
One of the things that I did, I actually designed a couple of different card faces, and one of them was more, I would say, traditional, with the number in the top corner and the bottom corner and a suit in the middle. And it just started to look a little clunky, a little pixelated, because there's just not that many pixels to work with. And then I was kind of surfing around, as I do, to get ideas about graphics looks and feels and things like that. And I saw there was a card game someplace, right? I just saw a picture of it that had where that guy had done what I ended up doing here, is sort of putting a big version of the suit kind of in the lower right hand corner and a bigger number. And I found, at least for me in my old eyes, it was a lot easier to see and play this way.
Now, for those who have never played poker squares or even poker, can you kind of explain like how this differs from poker, regular poker itself, and then kind of the gameplay, just for to get people familiar with it?
Yeah. So so hopefully everybody's somewhat familiar with the poker hands, and they're in the table in the lower right hand corner there for folks that aren't. But the idea is that you start with that diagonal stripe of cards that are flipped face down. So there's 5 random cards that are face down in that diagonal, and then you just flip over one card at a time, and you have to sort of strategically decide where in the other empty places that you can drop a card in, where is the likely to be the best place for that card to be, such that it helps you get points both horizontally and vertically. And I find as I start to play, occasionally I will have 2 or maybe 3 hands that I'm really going for, because I see that there's good points that can be had. And towards the end, I'm just trying to place cards where I think I can get a pair or something, where I don't waste a column or a row with no points. It doesn't always work that way. Usually there's one or more, many more columns or rows that you don't generate any points on. But for me, in playtesting this and just in recollection, the best hand I ever got was maybe 108 points or something like that, which I've never gotten a royal flush playing it time and time again. I've never managed to get a royal flush. I have got a straight flush a couple of times, and all of the other ones multiple times. So if anybody ever gets a royal flush, you need to take a picture of it. But if you're getting a hand that's worth $90 or more, that's typically a really good hand, a really good round, I guess.
Was it difficult trying to make things random?
No, well, actually, the one thing that and it was actually Nick on the call here that reminded me of the X equals minus timer, R&D minus timer command that truly randomizes. The first problem I ran into when I was writing the first version of this for the CoCo 3 is it came up with the same hand every time, right? The first time that you played, it was always the same, or I started to see that it was very, very similar. And so that randomizing the random seed really with the negative timer function was a perfect trick. Worked great.
Now, what is the rule as far as when those 5 that are face down when you start? Like, I noticed that after a while you get to select one to flip over so you can kind of see where it's going. What's the rule on that? Is it every so many cards, or how does that work?
No, I wanted that to that the chance, it's basically the random chance that you hear the tune that you can flip over one of the middle cards. It grows the further you get into the game, the higher the chance is. And so what you'll typically see is you might be able to place 5 or 10 cards sometimes before you hear the tune and are able to flip over the one of the middle ones. And so I kind of just messed around with literally like a sign function and a random number generation to try to get sort of an increasing chance over time, such that you have to flip all of the 5 cards before you can play, of course, the last card that you play. So that took a little bit of figuring out, a little bit of noodling with sign numbers and other things to try to get kind of an increasing chance. One of the pieces of feedback I got, which I thought was a really good idea, and I sort of incorporated it, was the feedback was, it's neat that, it costs $25 to play a hand and it deducts from your score, but really what gets people playing it is to try to get the most number of points that you can in a round. And so why not track that? Why not make that the object of, if you want to play it 2 or 3 times, trying to better your overall score each time? And so I added and it doesn't do this in the CoCo 3 version. It never tells you what your round was worth. You just have to sort of do the math. This one, I added that so that you can clearly see and maybe take a picture and share it in Discord, what your round was in terms of the, like how much your points were for that round.
Yeah, because your CoCo 3 version does the scores we're showing here right now. So basically the ones on the right-hand side are doing your horizontal hands, how much they're worth.
Right.
And based on that table on the lower right. And then the bottom row is doing the vertical ones, how much they're worth type thing, with X's meaning 0 points.
That's right.
And that's on the CoCo 3 version as well.
Yes, but it didn't do this,
But this
on the
part's new.
CoCo 3 version. Yeah, it doesn't do this on the CoCo 3 version. Tell you how much you actually won that round.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. Until I saw your CoCo 3 version, I'd never played it. I don't play card games that much, personally in real life or on the computer that much. But I actually found this one kind of fun.
I think the
I think we lost Mark.
Yeah, it looks like he's gone.
Does that mean we're not being recorded?
That would
means
be
we're
correct.
That is
just
correct.
having a conversation amongst ourselves.
It's interesting because CoCoTALK is still the host of this call, but I'm not sure what's holding that open. Maybe it's his phone.
So Paul, what's the monitor on your CoCo 3 back there?
Okay.
This
What, your
one,
back, Mark?
this one over here is a compact VGA monitor that I have connected up.
The other one.
Oh, the other one is it's the monochrome one, the Tandy monochrome one. What's it?
VM2.
VM2. It's the VM2. Yeah.
Cool.
The amber screen.
It's actually green.
Or
but
amber.
it's got the the composite connector,
back
which is
up.
really cool.
We're back up on Twitch.
Yeah, I didn't do anything. I just lost totally lost internet for a bit.
We're back up on Twitch.
Yeah, even
Okay.
Windows said I had nothing.
So it's for the people watching on Twitch, our host actually lost all internet. He even got kicked off the call for a bit himself. So hopefully we'll be able to stabilize and stay on for a bit here. But
We do have the local recording though.
I don't think we're on YouTube though.
Yeah, YouTube is there. It's just under a new stream now. This is the third one.
Oh, okay.
The internet is rising up
If you-
against us, I think.
If you go
Yeah.
back to the main page, for
your game is just too awesome, Paul. That's
It must be it.
Broke the internet. Yeah, I was really impressed with the graphics on it. When you're working with, I like working with the P Mode 4 screen because it's easier. And the way you've worked with the limitations of the screen, you made a really good looking game, like you said, with the bigger numbers or characters and the bigger graphics that are kind of in the corner there. And even the way they kind of go off the card a little bit, just to kind of fit it all on there and make them as big as possible. And the only part where you get that kind of rainbow stuff going on is in the lower right-hand corner, but all the rest of the graphics are really tight for, the limitations of P Mode 4.
Yeah, when I went to build that table of scores down in the lower right-hand corner, I really tried, John, to use the 2 pixel wide convention to avoid the unintentional artifacting. I couldn't make it fit, so I ended up having to do it like that. And it's one of those things. It actually looks better than on a regular CoCo, right? An actual CoCo outputting to either a TV or a composite monitor than it does in the emulation, because in on real hardware, even though you just have 1 pixel wide, it doesn't really look red. If there's nothing around it, it looks more black than red, like the letter I in pair. So it's more striking here than it is on actual hardware.
And it's readable even here with this kind of artifact.
Yeah, it is overall, it's very readable, and
when I ever
I
see
really
that,
like it.
It makes me feel like, you know, you're at home with the CoCo one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we should mention here, you just finished that up, and like we had gone through some different card designs, and I've actually added link or entries on my games page for both of your versions of Poker Squares just last night. The CoCo 3 version is currently available for download on the Color Computer Archive, and I have a link that does a kind of a search link on the site that you can click on the entry there and go straight to it. The CoCo 1 and 2 one you submitted, but I don't think William has actually put it up yet, though it should be up probably later this weekend or maybe Monday or Tuesday at the latest. But the link that I have there should find it once it's up there. For those that actually want to get it now without waiting, you've actually posted it on the CoCoTALK Discord, right?
Yes, I did.
The CoCo Discord?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's in there. And, you know, I didn't put it in Facebook. I don't know why. It just occurred to me I could have uploaded it into the file section of Facebook too, and I'll do that later on today.
That would be good.
And just for people, if we're on the Discord, but have to, you know, navigate the 5,000 channels, we have, I believe it's in the general game post channel. Yeah, general game post channel under the games subcategory.
That's it.
So, any further questions from anybody on the panel here on Poker Squares?
Yeah, I have
before
one
we go
more.
on to future stuff.
I have one question. Did you intend to do the graphics from machine language from the get-go, or did you try to do the graphics from basic? Because with get and put, you could probably do it, although I don't know you could get enough graphics memory set aside to do the whole card deck.
Yeah. No, I intended to do it in assembly the whole way. In fact, I intended to do the whole game in assembly and not do the hybrid mix of assembly and basic. But I got to the point that I really didn't want to put the effort into figuring out how to do the back end, the logic of reading the hands and calculating all of that stuff. I didn't really want to try to figure that out in assembly. That's why I sort of defaulted back to the way I did on the CoCo 3. But I think you're right, John, that you could absolutely do it in basic and still probably get away with some good speed if you were very strategic about what you saved and get put buffers and maybe what you had on a screen hidden behind this one if you used a P clear 8 as an example.
Yeah, and you might even be able to composite cards together, like, you know, just have a blank
have your digits
spade,
and then have your suits,
a blank diamond, and then just overlay the number when you needed to put it up. Yeah.
Right. That's actually the approach I use here too. It's just it happens in assembly, and so it's really fast.
Yeah. Awesome job, man. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Yep,
Thank you very much.
It's a good game.
Wonder the thing about your background. Do you ever notice that pretty much everybody puts their cassette player on their drives? It
just seemed like the right spot for it. Yeah, it did.
I do too.
I don't even have a cassette. Well, I have a cassette player, but I haven't used it in decades, so it just sits on a shelf somewhere. I don't know where it is.
I got that one. It was one of those like I saw it on eBay. It was still in the box. It was, you know, for a buy me now with a reasonable price. I've used it maybe once just to see if it worked, and it totally works. But I just have it to look at now.
It
I
looks
don't actually
cool
use it.
there.
Yeah, thank you. I like it like that too.
I must be one of the oddballs. I always liked the cassette player on the left side because for me, the floppy drives were on the right side, then the hard drive was on top of those.
Depends on if you have real estate.
Yeah, that's for me. It's a small desk, so I have to go up. I can't go out.
Yeah.
Right. My situation was the floppy was the monitor stand. You turned it sideways, monitor on top, CoCo in front of it. That was my desk space.
Rick, what have you done there with your Model 1?
No, Ron's calling me out.
Look at that.
Troll CoCoTALK.
You put the Model 1 inside that.
Just realize nobody can see this on the
case.
stream. So.
Oh, right. Well, actually, it's a Commodore 64 and a 1541 drive under the monitor.
Oh, okay.
I was trolling. And of course, Ron noticed it because he's an observer.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed it too. I own a Model 1, so I picked that out right away that it was not.
Yeah,
Model
no, the Model 1's in the shop getting remodel 1. It can't find its expansion.
Uh-oh. I think we're pausing again.
Are we?
Is anybody else seeing that on Twitch, or is that just me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
buffering on YouTube.
It does keep dropping to 0 bytes here every.
You're the only one I see on Twitch right now.
Well, if you're still recording, I guess we can still keep going. So
yeah.
Okay, so basically what I wanted to get to next here, now that Paul's released a CoCo 3 version of Poker Squares, and now he's released a CoCo 1.2 version of Poker Squares, where could he possibly go from there? And you actually put up a rather intriguing screenshot of importing the CoCo 3 card set to the 16-color CoCo VGA mode.
I've had a CoCo VGA now, probably like lots of people, for years. And I only just recently, and this is my second try at it, although Brendan does a really nice job out on the CoCo VGA side of putting instructions of how to control and interface with the hardware in assembly language, in BASIC, and he has a lot of utilities as well that help you do it. I really wanted to figure out how to, in assembly language, send the register information to the CoCo VGA to put it into the VG6 or the VGA mode, which is this really cool 128 by
96.
What is it, John? 96? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, 96. With, depending on the version of the CoCo VGA you have, you either have 512 colors possible or a lot more than 512, because I think
32,768, I think.
Right, because
more recent ones.
The earlier versions use 3-bit RGB color, and the later versions use 5-bit RGB color. So, for me, the fun thing, that sort of the epiphany I had last night, was figuring out what were the right bit patterns to use to select the palette colors that would match what the CoCo 3 outputs as well. And it worked pretty well. So I was pleased with it. So these are the cards. These three are three of the cards that are in the CoCo 3 version. Of course, they're much smaller on a 320 by 225 screen than they are here. But earlier this morning, I started to design a set of cards that are more appropriate to a 128 by 96 size screen. So we'll see how that goes.
So are you trying to scale these cards specifically, or designing a whole new card set from scratch, basically?
Nope, I'm going to design a whole new cards set from scratch. I'm really kind of following the same design language that I used in the CoCo 2 version, that has a suit that hangs off the bottom right-hand side and one large number up in the top left-hand corner, because these cards need to be no more than 18 pixels high in order to be able to fit enough cards on the screen for what I want to do. So that's not a lot of pixel height to do stuff with.
Yeah.
So what are you using the extra colors in the 16-color mode for then? If you're basically doing the CoCo 1 and 2, that's basically just the colors of the suits themselves, which is black and red, obviously. Are you still trying to do like the faces of kings and jacks and stuff? Or
if I can make them look right, I will. But yeah, it's a good question. Currently, the mock-up I have is only, I don't know, 6 colors. It's more than 4, but it's and they're 4 sort of nicer colors, or 6 nicer colors than what we get in P mode 4. But yeah, it's a good point. They're not going to immediately, like, you're not going to see all of the detail necessarily that you see here, like in the king card.
Yeah, well, if you wanted to make like a bubble shape type thing, you could do that, because you have more colors to work with, so you can like shade things. So different shades of the same color, as opposed to number of colors,
right?
More shades of the same color, of the few colors even that you were using can work good. I had a lot of trouble trying to wrap my head how to talk to CoCo VGA.
Yeah,
so it's
that
not
whole
easy.
512 byte frame buffer you have to do and catch it on the VSync. And
yeah, it's most of it I just copy pasted from what he puts out on his website. Like, in it, I was just sort of taking it on faith that it was going to work. Some of it I did start to figure it out, but last night was the second time I really tried to figure it out. The first time I couldn't, so I was pleased enough to post a screenshot out here.
Yeah,
Are you going to use the smaller font?
Yeah, see like the J and the like the words for Joker. That's the size of the font that will have to be in this game, because it is the pixels are so big.
Right.
But we'll see. I like doing card games. I don't know why. So I'm gonna do another card game.
Who knows?
Gonna do a Star Trek card game?
What's that, Ron?
How about a Star Trek card game?
Oh, that's a good idea.
My CoCo 2 is still in storage from the move, but the CoCo 3 is out, because I just got it upgrade for the Gimme X, and now I'm playing with the Gimme X, and not so much the CoCo VGA. But I do want to get back into the CoCo VGA. Yeah.
Where are you going to spend all your time?
I got so many things to do. You have no idea.
I same here. I go off on rabbit trails doing stuff, and then pretty soon, what was I going to do?
I'm familiar with that myself. Anyway, it looks really good. I'm like the card actually looks really good here. I mean, if you did a game that doesn't require as many cards on the screen at once, you could probably do pretty decent with the original card set you used from the CoCo 3 version, even on the CoCo VGA. So
absolutely, yeah, I was really happy with they look really nice on the CoCo coming through the CoCo VGA. And so, if you're right, if there was a game that could use the full size cards, I think they're fantastic in CoCo VGA.
Now tell us about those speakers.
That's a $9 set of speakers I got from Amazon because I needed to put some sound out. So they work really well.
So yeah, definitely keep us posted. I will announce next week officially that it's been uploaded to the Color Computer Archive, because like I said, last time I checked this morning, it wasn't up there yet. Should be up there over the weekend, I'm pretty sure. And Paul, if you're going to upload it to Facebook, of course, people can check there as well. But if you're on our Discord, you can get it right now. And it runs on any CoCo 1, 2, or 3, requires 32K extended basic. I think the current way it's set up, it requires disk. And somebody might want to hack it for cassette at some point. It wouldn't be impossible.
Now listen, I have a 64K CoCo too. Will it work? Because it's not 32.
Yes.
That's why I said at least 32.
Yes, it will work.
All right.
And the CoCo 3 version, it just requires a stock 128K CoCo 3. No upgrades required.
Yeah, it should work fine. It runs in basic, so it should work just fine on a 128.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for guesting with us, Paul, and kind of explaining what you did and where you're heading with it with some of these other things. I don't know if you're going to planning on doing like a Gimme X version later on with 6 color modes on there too, or
I feel like I need to, right?
Yeah. And of course, I've been pressuring you to do a base benign version for Nitrous 9 EOU.
That's the next one. Yes, that's the next one. And luckily, I picked up a book the other day. That is my tour guide to Basic 09. So I think between this and all of the information that's available on the interwebs, I ought to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, and there's been some updates too that go beyond that book too, so that I can help you with those if you need any help with that. But I already imported the card sets. You don't have to do all that. It's ready to go. You just load the get buffers and just go on from there. So it should be pretty easy.
How can I not do it then?
Aaron's suggesting, how about tarot cards?
Oh, that would be cool because those are neat looking.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even with this giant set here on the CoCo VGA we're displaying right now, I mean, if you did a card that actually used hands where you just put the cards over top so you can just see the far left and then you pull the cards out as you go.
Mm-hmm.
You can even do some animations and stuff like that too. I think you could fit like a decent hand. You don't have to show the whole card at a time. You can just show the one on the far right side, for example, fully, and just have the other ones kind of overlaid going across type thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, cool. Thanks for that. Next up, Sheldon MacDonald. And speaking of new releases, we just announced last week that he's actually producing the hardware now for his Treasure Island Defense game, which we showed the video of last week. So he's actually in the manufacturing stages now. So here he kind of shows a breakdown of what the kit that you buy off of him contains. So he's got, the little colored cards with the instructions. He's got the actual board. He's got the 3D printed cases for it. He's even got a little box that has a picture of the game on it as well, and the ROM that you burn for it, etc. And he said the game pack will cost $20 and shipping will most likely be another $20. He's shipping from Canada, so I imagine it's a little bit cheaper for us in Canada. So Nick Marotta and I get kind of special treatment on that one. But it's actually up for sale now. So that's a Game Master cartridge with the CoCo VGA support. So it's kind of the first game I think ever that combines those two support-wise. So it has the enhanced graphics and the enhanced sound. And it's pretty cool that he's actually getting it out and going now too. So if any of you have gotten it or get it soon and then put it together and try running, I wouldn't mind getting a live demo on a future show here just to kind of show everybody what it looks and sounds like. And you can tell any tales of putting it together type thing.
Hey, Curtis, since you're up on all these games, like on your site and all, did anybody ever come out with a Ouija board game?
Not that I remember. Rainbow might have had one at some point.
But
I mean, that
you could do on the computer, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, some people have a bit of a religious bent against Ouija boards in general, so maybe that's why it probably hasn't been that popular. I don't know.
sort of like a strange card game, right?
Yeah.
I'm
So
pretty
this
sure
was an
that's
update-
how houses
Go ahead.
get haunted. With
Yeah.
Ouija board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why the game Poltergeist was created. So Sheldon actually did an update later on today too, concerning the Treasure Island defense. So basically, this is a comparison video. So he's now ported it so it also runs on Ed Snyder's PSG sound card, which is a little bit of a different sound. And as he mentions here, he said it's a lot cheaper to build it if you have a multi-pack interface of some sort, either 2 or 4 slot, and the PSG. If you already have that, you can get the enhanced sound on that as well. You still need the CoCo VGA. But he actually did a comparison video here. We actually does the differences between the 2 sound cards. And while it's mostly the same, as he put it in the comments, he said it sounds a little bit darker on the PSG than it does on the GMC. So do you guys want me to play the whole 3-minute video to do the whole comparison, or should I just do some little snippets in between?
Go for the whole thing. What the heck?
Okay.
We got time.
It'll probably be a slideshow for all you out in public here, but at least you'll be able to hear it because this is mainly to do the audio differences.
Well, as soon as we hit the 1 hour mark, the light went green, just stayed green now.
Oh, maybe they fixed whatever the issue was. Okay, in that case, I'll just play it. Okay, let me know how the volume is on this one because it's kind of hard to gauge on Facebook ones.
Hello, Sheldon MacDonald here.
Are you hearing Sheldon's voice?
Do a
Yeah.
comparison today with my new PSG player. So now I've got my TID Treasure Island Defense on a normal flash cartridge now. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to use
Is that running OS 9
for sound playback. There's one catch on this one though. The PSG needs to be in slot 1. If it's not there, it's not going to work. I couldn't program my auto detect from a ROM. I could if it was running off an SD card, but because the way it needs to check, it just wasn't going to work. But that's fine. So this is obviously, let's see what this looks like or sounds like. So it sounds a bit darker. The PSG has got definitely some darker tones. Sound effects are pretty much the same. Okay.
Pretty neat.
Let's see here. Okay, and now we're going to put the Game Master cartridge in. Okay, so that's this one. This one obviously doesn't use the PSG. It uses itself, and this is the difference, I guess.
So if you shoot the sun, will it go black?
I don't believe so.
Cool. That's my demonstration. For those that purchase any copy whatsoever, they'll also get this PSG version.
So I mean, that's kind of cool that he's actually supporting 2 of the sound devices, because that's one thing we've talked about, and other shows have talked about having so many different sound card options now. It's kind of hard to pick, and he's actually picked to support 2 of them, as well as the CoCo VGA. So this is a really nice upgrade for the CoCo 1 and 2 people. And if you already have one of the PSGs, you're ready to go. And if you order the Game Master one, you actually get a copy of the PSG one as well. So if you have both sound cards, and I believe David Ladd, I think you're one of the people that does have both of those, don't you?
Yes, I have the GMC, the PSG, and of course the Mega Mini. So if he was to ever add the Mega Mini support, I'd be able to test that as well.
I believe Mr. Alan Murphy might be able to help him a bit with that. So anyway, yeah, he's actually shipping the actual cartridges now, based on the Game Master cartridge design, and he's also including the software for the PSG version. So those are available now.
I noticed he unplugged and plugged the card in without turning off the multi-pack.
Yeah, but he shut the CoCo off, so I mean, that should be okay.
Yeah, but the multi-pack's still on.
Well, does a 2-slot have its own power too? I can't remember.
Yeah, it is. I've got a 2-slot and there is power.
And yeah, I was going to make a comment on that, but I wasn't going to be a stickler. But yeah, the MPI should always.
What I'm gathering.
But yeah, the MPI should always be shut off as well when you're putting or removing cards. Otherwise, you still run the risk of shorting out the bus and frying components.
Well, heck, didn't Tandy do that on their ads?
Yeah, well, you're counting your life on that slightly shortened track on the 5-volt line to get the card connected before the power comes up to the card. And
yeah, and if you go a bit of cockeyed in there, you might short it out with another pin.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't.
Tandy's pockets were deep. They could just bring another one out.
Right. So the salesman would just hold down the reset button, change the ROM pack, and let go the reset button, and away it'd go.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you could do like Danielle does and just plug in 2 multi-packs with the power on both of them simultaneously. Yeah. I still have shudders up my spine every time I think of that. That was insane. Okay, so next up we have Richard Kelly's posted his reference map guide for his version 2, the Binary Adventure game, which is a game he put up on Facebook for download a little bit earlier. He does mention that the map gets complicated enough that this will prove quite helpful, because this is one of those adventure games that has those like infinite loops in certain directions and things, where it's not quite logical, but a lot of the games, Pyramid 2000 from Tandy did that, for example. So this map download you can get from the Color Computer group in Facebook will help you kind of get through that without actually giving you like every secret of the game too. So, and I guess he'd promised to put this up a while ago and he kept forgetting, but he finally got it up. So.
Mikey said that he thinks that Ed said that the Mega Mini and the regular Mega both shut off when you power off the CoCo, even though they still have power to them.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Okay, that'd
be kind of cool. I didn't know that. Ed, if you're listening or watching here, if you want to just verify if that's correct or not.
Well, I don't think they have a power switch. I mean, so you'd have to unplug.
You have to unplug the cord.
Yeah.
I have mine on I have my whole CoCo system on a power switch that my Mega Mini's on, so I just shut the whole the monitor, the CoCo, everything goes off at once.
Yeah, I always use the power strip as well.
Unless he's got like some sort of sleep circuit in there that monitors the CoCo.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So Ed, if you're out there, please verify that, yes or no. That'd be interesting to know if that is true, because that would be nice to know.
We could have a new blow up section of our show.
We'll start up a new page that Ron puts up on Facebook for blown CoCos. And
why did Ed do this?
The magic smoke section.
Yeah, like that guy that does electronics and always winds up getting shocked.
Oh, Electro Boom.
Yeah, remember that? He's so funny.
He is.
Yeah, that was just me when I was trying to do electronics, which is why I don't anymore.
Yeah, we should have a live shot of your hair getting burned when you're trying to solder. That'd be cool.
Actually, the sad thing is that happened more than once.
Oh,
that's why his hair's so short now.
Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, those roots are permanently burned off now and don't grow back anymore. So anyway, it takes back on track here. So next one up, Fabrizio Caruso. He placed second in the 10-liner basic programming contest, which is a cross-platform for the old 8-bits for doing programming in BASIC. Jim Gerrie takes part in it every year, and some other people have as well. And he actually placed in the pure 120, because that's different subcategories. They have ones where the lines are not allowed to be over 80 columns. There's the pure 120, which is 120 columns, and you got the the stuff the lines as full as they can get type of thing. And his game here, called Minds Plus, actually ranked second. This is cross-platform, so this is going against Ataris and Sinclairs and a bunch of other things. So that's a pretty good coding. And he's got the game available for download here on his own GitHub, and he's also got the source code available if you want to take a look at that as well. And he's got a little bit of a video here, which I will play now. That seems a bit loud to me. I'm going to turn that down.
That's just right.
Was it? Or are you being sarcastic?
That's good.
Now, I haven't had a chance to try this game, so I'm not really familiar with what the gameplay is, but
It flips colors once in a while.
yeah, it goes between the screen modes. I will mention, actually, one of the people that's a regular in the Migos and actually does some of its own streaming goes under the name of 48K Ram. He's an Atari guy. Sloopy, you'll like him. But he's actually was one of the judges in the show this year, and he's actually participated as a programmer a few years back, and now he's actually one of the judges. So I don't know if he was involved in helping select this particular one or not, but if you guys have any questions about the contest in general, he's probably be a good person to ask. And I know he occasionally watches us here in CoCoTALK as well. So
I got 2 or 3 of his opera albums.
Next up, Trey Tomes here is working on porting a game from the PC, which used the hardware text mode with the extended ANSI graphics text characters that the PC supported. And we covered it a little bit last week because he created a special character set to do this with. And now he's actually been starting to do some sample level layouts for it. And the game is a ZZT, I think it's called. It's kind of a rogue style game from what I understand. So this is kind of his very first screen mock-up here where he's got just a couple numbers and some of the special symbols and a little bit of the mapping with the shading and stuff here as a first example. And then a little bit later, he posted a couple of more actual in-game style screenshots here. So you can see, here's an armory and hallways, etc. going. And then sort of a status screen here as well, too. So he's making some pretty good progress on it. And he's using a special version of the IBM PC font, similar to what Todd Wallace did that we've got included in Nitrous 9, except he's got the full 256 character set here, whereas the Nitrous 9 one only does 224 because the control characters are reserved for internal codes. Now, there is a way to get around that. You can just define 2 fonts. You can do the 224 character set that Todd's already done. Then you can take those first 31 or 32 characters, create a second font with those, and then you just have to do a print character string with an offset, and then you can actually just switch between fonts willy-nilly whenever you need those extra ones. Because I think they had stuff like playing card symbols, and I don't remember what else is in that particular area, but there's a few extra characters that you can use. But anyway, the game looks like it's progressing quite well. He's actually got it, basically printing with color and everything else, and all the various character sets, and screen looks like pretty good. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm a huge fan of the roguelike games.
What do you think ZZT stands for?
I have no idea. I think he might have even mentioned what it was on the last one. So check last week's episode run. I think it was in there.
Okay.
Okay, next up, Robert Sieg put up this here, and this is kind of related to another story that's going to be in the regular news because he's actually created. We showed last week he has this little graphic editing thing where it switches to this text screen to edit a zoomed up 32:16 version of the graphic screen, so you can just edit it, using text characters. So it's fast, and then he puts it back to the graphics. And one of the reasons he was creating this thing for editing this is that he can create, kind of sprite-like images here. So this is actually a sample he did, kind of showing it with some Mario characters at the 128x96x4 color mode on the MC-10. And he did all these various, Mario and various things. And basically, if you wanted to write a game using this, and I believe the MCX Basic supports get put, if I remember correctly, so you should be able to actually do this in Basic too, on an MC-10. So you can actually make some pretty decent arcade games. So I'm kind of curious where he's going to take this. Next up, we have Ken of Canadian Retro Things. He put up a video. Now, of course, he did our video for the Game On Challenge, as he does every week for Gaze On. But in this particular case, he's actually taking a look at some of the old either generic computer books of typing in games or some of the ones that were CoCo specific. So he kind of goes through and shows you a few of the ones that he has in his collection so far here. That's one of the generic ones. But basically, these were books you would buy at the bookstore or sometimes at the computer store, and then we go in and you just type in these basic games and play them. And he actually goes through and plays some of the games here too. It also shows you how awesome the graphics look on the actual, pages of the book itself, and you're having these high expectations. That's not quite what you get when you actually type the game in. But some of the games are quite fun, as he pointed out, too. So he's got one here called Speedboat, which I'll play a little bit of.
When I was a kid, I actually tinkered around with this program a lot. So
Look, there's a couch.
Different versions of this.
So obviously we know now that Nightmare Highway is a complete rip-off of this game done back in the early days. So.
Is there anyone on the panel who hadn't written one of these road racer games like this? With
Oh no, this one's different. This is a boat on water, so this is totally different.
Totally different.
Though I have to say, this one does add in some unique things, like having to steer between these little bits, and you have to collect things as you're going down too, instead of the standard, like Rick said, we just wrote it so you just scrolled the screen and basically just zip back and forth trying to dodge the edge of the road type thing. So
end table and couch.
Here's another one where it's building a maze that you have to solve. Now you had to speed it up because the actual generating the maze is quite slow, but then you have to basically navigate the maze after it's randomly generated it as fast as you can type thing. I always liked these too when I was young, because it was kind of like the ones you'd see in the newspaper and stuff, except it would just make a new one every time you want.
Spurred my imagination along. As a bit of a longer program to type in.
This one's called
Still,
Getaway.
I mean, look at those pictures. They really do sell these programs with the artwork that they do in these books. And finally, here is Getaway.
And this is the graphics you actually get.
And I got a C, so I escaped. And you
a touch disappointing after seeing the graphics, but I mean,
and your game is over.
The game itself from this particular one actually sounds kind of fun too. It's a bit of an original one. And there were some other games he did where he was not that impressed. Like this one here, where it's basically everything that you're trying to shoot is always in the same spot on the side type thing. It doesn't really vary as much as it should for a fun game.
Out into the middle.
Anyway, he did a couple more games past that too, and like I said, some of the books are CoCo specific, which case you do some of the colored graphics blocks here, like he's showing on these ones here. But he's got a few others that he typed in too that are completely generic text because they're meant to run on any 8-bit, and of course the graphics was all different. And the some Ed Petsky, some of the character strings, the Model 1 3 had the 2x3 blocks of black and white, so it just depended on with machines. So they just wrote for the common denominator. So whoever that was, okay.
Bless you.
So I go check that out. He's got a nice 20-minute video on a bunch of the games that he did with sample gameplay on some of the games that he typed in. Next up, Frodo NL, our friend from the Netherlands, actually did a couple of pretty decent streams here involving the CoCo in some way, shape, or form. So this one is one he actually did a few weeks ago. I think I mentioned it was on Twitch Live. It's now been posted to the Amigos channel on YouTube, so you can watch it at your own volition. But this was one taking all the various versions of Manic Miner on 12 different systems and comparing them. So like what I'm showing here is the original Spectrum version, which is what the originally was written for. And then a little bit later, he goes into the Dragon CoCo version, which was black and white, but basically the exact same graphics because the mode the Spectrum used was 256 by 192, which matches identically to the CoCo and the Dragon. The difference was they had that special, tiled color thing that you could define colors and blocks behind the foreground and background colors, so you could actually add some color, but you also get that colored bleed effect when you're going between them. So, but he goes through a bunch of the other ones too, so you can kind of compare with the different versions, like Commodore 64 versions, what they look like, and Ataris, and all kinds of things. So it's a pretty interesting video if you want to go through kind of the history of Manic Miner, including into much more modern systems and what they've done with it since. So they've added like musical soundtracks and super fancy graphics, etc. So that's kind of cool. And then one he just did this week live, and this we kind of worked together a little bit on because I gave him a list because he's been doing these series on some of the old 8-bit machines called the first year of, and he basically picks the games that came out the first year of the computer's existence. Now on some of these he's cheated a little bit because the first year sometimes people are just learning the hardware, so not much comes out for a while. And the CoCo 1 is no exception in that case because I mean it came out, it was announced in the summer of 1980. It didn't actually go on sale until probably about September, October. Then there was some problem with the SAM chips because the SAM chip was the last chip designed that was put into the CoCo 1, and there were some problems with some of the original versions of the chip. So Tandy had to do a recall and replace a bunch of them. So basically that set things back a bit. So basically we extended this to go from like 1980 through the end of 81. Now, one issue he hit, and I've found this too, the Color Computer Archive on some of the titles of the games will list the year of release. Those are not always right. There's been a few here that he's pulled in, and it says, it's written in 1980 or 81. Then you look at the copyright screen on the game itself, it says 1982. So he's got a few games that kind of snuck in here that are actually from later years. Now, I did notice this too. Like I was playing Clowns and Balloons for the Game On Challenge. My cartridge has a copyright 1980 on the label on the cartridge itself, and it's an original Clowns and Balloons. It's not like a remade one. The game itself didn't come out till after that, so I don't know if Tandy just had a generic piece of artwork they sometimes stuck on as part of the label background and just never bothered to change it when the copyright date changed. So I understand why he got confused in this, but he goes through a fair number of the games. A lot of them are the Radio Shack ones, of course, because the very beginning, that's pretty well you're going to get. So he plays like Backgammon and some other ones too. Castle Guard was one of the ones that should have been from 82. But then he gets into a few of the third-party ones. So he's got like Cave Hunter from Mark Data Products. We actually did a little bit of playing of the original text version of Black Sanctum by Mark Data Products 2, the original text version of the adventure game. It was later redone with graphics for the 32K CoCos a couple years later. But it's a nice little history. I mean, this gives you an idea of what the programmers were coming out with when they machine first came out. And in the case of the CoCo, I mean, that was a unique combination based on the Motorola reference design that not really had been done before. So it was like really fresh and new, whereas sometimes you get a computer that, basically is similar to a previous one, so that, the programs are a bit more advanced on how to use the CPU, the graphics, the sound, etc. So I always find these fascinating. I've watched some of the other ones he's done, like on some of the other, the Spectrum and some others too. And I always find these fascinating. And he's planning on doing a CoCo 3 first year of too, of which Pyramix probably is going to be a part of it, because that was one of the ones released in the first year of the CoCo 3's release, which is our Game On Challenge for this week, of course. So definitely well worth it. It's a fairly lengthy one. It's just over 3 hours, and it will be showing up on the YouTube channel probably within a couple of weeks. They kind of stagger those a little bit, but definitely worth taking a move through. I know I should mention too, he's playing these on his Mister. Next up, 0 Hour, Chapter 4. So we've actually got the author here on the call. Nick, did you want to talk about something, or do you want me to just play the video preview first and then you talk about it? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, there's not really much more than just showing some of the sounds I put in there. So I can talk while the video's going, maybe.
Well, if you're talking, we can't hear the sound.
Hey, oh well, yeah, of course.
So let me play it for a bit, and then we'll let Nick talk.
All right, yeah. That gives me a few more minutes to sleep.
Yeah.
Impressive. He has that machinery sound down great.
Yeah, and the background noise actually kind of pulses with the cogs too, which actually matched up quite well. I will mention that lunging sound, that hoot sound, I call that the Vegemite tasting sound myself, because that's the same reaction I have when I taste Vegemite. But
realistic sounds.
And some of these, Nick, is designed to be a bit more subtle. They're not meant to be right in the foreground.
Yeah. I mean, most of these will make sense in the game, of course, itself.
You're going to have your voice in there somewhere?
Oh, no, probably not. Don't want to detract the game already. This is a Star Trek DS9 elevator sound that was before. That's about the end of it. So basically, the video you saw last week in the previous blog didn't have any sound, only because I didn't have any sound samples in there. The sound routine was running, but there was no sound samples. So all I've done in this chapter is add some sound samples, which I just grabbed off the internet. You can just download heaps of free WAV or MP3 format audio files. And it's just a matter of trolling through the internet looking for anything that's suitable. And then I edit them in Audacity so I can shrink their size or trim just the parts I want. And then I've got a basic program that then takes that WAV file and imports it into the CoCo, lets me position it in memory and save it as a block. So at the moment, there's 49K of RAM in the game that I've allocated for sound samples. And most of those sounds are little spot sound effects. So as the video was showing, they're meant to just sort of happen. For example, when you jump, you get that little Vegemite lunge sound that Curtis mentioned, and there's a few little explosions and things. But in the game, of course, they'll get played at the appropriate time. With this demo, I've just got it so I press the keys 1 to 0 that to trigger a sound. So just for testing purposes. And that's basically all I've done in this chapter.
It'd be cool to have like Clint Eastwood in there. Make my day.
Well, you can, but the thing is, WAV files do take up a lot of RAM. So before you know it, you've got this program which is just eating up RAM. I like to try keep my programs a bit tight, and not just overblow. I mean, you can just go ahead and just load up the RAM, but there's no need. You can actually optimize.
Plus, in your case, you want to be able to run it off of real floppies, and if you start doing like huge samples, you're going to have to say insert disk 27 and hit enter.
I'm not really thinking of real floppies. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, they're all fairly real sounding sounds. They're the sort of things that the sound chips can't do either. I mean, you're playing with actual sound effects. The fidelity, of course, isn't as good as what the original WAV files are, because I have to tailor them down to a sample rate that works within the CoCo's interrupt-driven routine. I mean, the higher you set that, the better the quality, but then it just eats up RAM and slows down your game like anything. So it's a compromise. And I'm running at about 7,000 kilohertz, which is really pretty low. But yeah, if you play with the sound in something like Audacity on the PC or a Mac, you can try tune it a bit so it isn't too bad. And anyway,
and the frequency that the timing that you pick for that is also based on what else your game is going to be doing. So if you have a game that's more, say, a strategy game, you can do a higher sampling rate because you're not, say, moving as much graphics around. Yeah, it all depends on your game. If your game needs more CPU time, then you have to trim your playback time on your samples, obviously. But yeah, if it's a board game of some sort, you can have better sounds as long as you've got the RAM to store them.
Certainly beat your normal bloops and bleeps. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all they are. Just bleeps and bloops and the occasional explosion. And this game doesn't have it, but you can have gunshots and whatever else, like my last game. And you can sound pretty good when you put them all in there.
And I noticed one thing that you did is you kept the sounds fairly short because they're
and they're short. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to conserve RAM because you can go nuts and make a big long sample, and before you know it, you've just blown 64K, and the 6809 only addresses 64K at a time at maximum. Otherwise, you have to start banking in and banking out, and it just becomes an absolute mess trying to do things. And I'm trying to keep it, workable so it doesn't drive me nuts or more nuts.
It's not like a modern PC where you have just reams of memory and hardware for playing the samples too.
4 gigabytes. Oh, that's nothing.
And a spare CPU core as well. So hey.
Well, also, I mean, also you got to bear in mind modern PCs have sound hardware that are, the computer's not doing anything to play the sound, and you get this high quality audio from the PC.
Well, I guess
your MP3 card kind of does that. I mean, that's the reason you helped create that.
I do have an MP3 card. No, I may even make this game support that later on. But at this stage, I'm just thinking, trying to keep it running on a the minimal system, which is a 512K CoCo 3. If you have a 6
CoCo 1.
Well, no CoCo 1.
No, 4K
Well,
CoCo 1.
4K, yeah. Yeah,
That's gonna be awfully small digitized samples on a 4K
I
CoCo.
couldn't do it in that sort of RAM. But yeah.
I mean, to give you guys an idea, when I digitized the CoCoTALK theme song, the original Bruce Moore rock and roll version of it, and we put it onto EOU, it's 1.8 meg, I think, for the whole thing, and I chopped that down to like 8-bit and maybe 8 kilohertz or 11 kilohertz or something like that, mono instead of stereo. So we cut it right down, and it's a 1.5-minute song, and it took almost the entire 2 meg on a 2 meg machine to play. Like you couldn't run much anything else, it would cut it off because it ran out of RAM.
Yeah,
and that's only a 1.5 minutes.
The game assets, the graphics, and the sound use up a lot more RAM than what the actual code does. I mean, I think the code will probably end up being no more than 8K for the whole game when I'm done. So 8K for the code and oodles more for the sound effects and graphics, but that's just the way the games are nowadays. If you want
Well,
to
it's
have
just always how, especially when you're working
Yeah.
in assembly, the logic is, I wrote a program once and it was complicated. It had an opening and then it did a bunch of different things. And when I got done, it was like 40 bytes or something. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
and you put one sound effect if you want to use samples and you blow that by 4 times.
Yeah.
But oh well, they do sound good though, and the routine in there does work with the code. I mean, the animated background that I've got there, and when the game's all done, we'll be able to run it, well, essentially full speed, no interruption, and the sound effects work pretty well on their own without interrupting it at all. So it's quite smooth.
Yeah, I mean, when you show the graphics demo of the cog spinning last week without the sound, I mean, if you take a look at what you have now with dual sounds, because you have the original, background ambience effect that you've got the motors running in the background. Plus, when you're hitting keys, you're actually getting the different sound effects sounding, and it doesn't slow the cogs down at all. I mean, it's still running the same speed you ran last time.
Well, they were the sound routine was running last time as well. It's just that it had nothing to play, so it was just sitting there quiet. So it was really running back then as well, but. Actually, that ambient sound was, it's quite good. It gives a bit more depth to the background, so it feels more like a real machine running in the background. But I've kept it low. I know that having a drone sound playing in the background constantly, it's going to drive people nuts. It drives me nuts. So I've got it really soft so that it's just there, like almost like a background hum.
Like all of us people here talking on CoCoTALK, we're kind of an ambient droning sound that everybody hates too. So that works.
Oh, that's what. Oh, it's people talking. I thought that was my droning sound. No, it's So I keep it soft, just so it's there in the background to give you a subliminal feeling that you're in a big factory.
Yeah, and the fact that you time it with the cogs spinning, so that you get that little bit of a pulse in the sound. It's not just a flat.
Oh yeah. That was planned.
Yeah, it kind of matches the teeth, type of thing. So,
hey Nick, I got a question regarding that. When you put the graphics, the things that are moving, when you're going to be putting, you haven't gotten that far yet, but when you get to the point where you're putting the graphics on the screen, I know that you got like 4 frames, right? Because of the gears, you got 4 different frames.
Yep.
So are you going to be like putting the graphic up, displaying the screen, and then setting up the next screen, switching over to that, and then removing what was on the previous screen?
Yes and no. One of the things with my graphics engine that I have here, the one I've modeled from my Gunstar game, is I don't have to actually remove anything. The engine, the underlying engine does that automatically almost by the way it works. So I just have to draw the characters on the screen, and when that's all done, I display the finished screen. So you see a nice clean screen just appear, and then while that's being displayed, the engine automatically refreshes the next screen that's going to be drawn with a fresh background, with the cogs already moved, the platforms are already in place. So as far as my code's concerned, all I do is, once I've displayed the last screen, then start drawing on the new screen. The engine is taking care of cleaning up the mess, basically.
So but is it cleaning up by replacing what was there,
or replacing? Yeah, it's automatically copying the next frame that it's got to display into the old video buffer, so that you start with a fresh video buffer. So hence I say all you'd have to worry about is just putting the sprites on there, because the
so basically your background of the cogs themselves, which you have 4 different positions that you rotate through, and then the tiles that you overlay on top of that, you pre-render that on 4 different screens, and then you block copy whichever one's the active one to the active video frame you're going to be displaying.
Yeah,
and then you just overlay the sprites on top of that.
Hence why the program does use a lot of CPU time, because it is doing a big block copy to restore that background.
Okay, so you're just copying the entire
cog. Next frame. Yeah.
Minus the status on the bottom. That's
minus the status on the bottom.
Right.
But it's the cogs and the platforms. They're all on the one screen.
And they're already ordered and anded together.
Already pre-done. Yeah, that's
you're not manually redrawing that every frame either. It's just you do the one render at the beginning and go.
All I have to do. Yep.
Next year when Ed comes out with a surround sound unit, are you going to support that? Wouldn't that be cool?
I was waiting for the brain link where you just plug a cable into the back of your neck, and then you can just sit in a chair and play the game that way in your sleep.
And you could have surround sound in your brain.
You can have whatever you want.
Anyway, thanks for the update, Nick. I know you're working, as you mentioned on your blog, you're working on doing some cog backgrounds. You want different levels have different, cog backgrounds, so it looks visually
so there'll
different.
be 4 different cog backgrounds just to vary the background a bit between levels. And I've almost finished that part as well. So next chapter won't be too far off. Although I do want to get a title page and the high score page up. Everyone, I get a lot of criticism saying, why do you do title pages and high scores first? Why don't you do the game like normal people would do? Say, well, I'm not a normal person.
I can vouch for that.
I always do the title page and then the last page, the high score page, and then I fill the middle in. I've always done it that way. I always try to think linear. That's the start of the game. It's the title page. That's the first part I'll do. But anyway, that's the way I work. And
it works for you. I mean, you complete projects.
It works for me, yeah.
I don't. Hydros 9 has been in development now since 1992, and I'm still not done. I mean, that will let you know where I am. Thanks for the update, Nick. Next up, we have Jim Gerrie. He's actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, one more thing. Up in the chat, Ken wants to know if the elevator gets stuck.
Oh, you mean like at CoCoFest?
Yes.
I don't know.
My elevators.
He was talking about he doesn't want too much, sampling in there, and all the swearing we were doing. We were trapped in the elevator. Would take a lot of sample space. So I don't know if he really wants to support that.
That'll be the limited edition CoCoFest version.
2 meg required for all those swearing samples.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have. Go ahead.
Yeah, next up. Go ahead.
Okay. So Jim Gerrie, they're doing something a little bit different this time. So he's actually taking a poll, and he's been doing all these compiled games with Greg Dion's MC-10 basic compiler, which we've showed off on the show here over the last few weeks. And he's actually planning on doing something a bit different. He's going to have a high score challenge based on only his compiled games. You get to pick which ones you want. That's what this poll is for here, to pick. So far right now at the moment, Scramble is number 1, Jailbreak, Load Runner, and Cuthbert are also on the list right now with some votes. And he's actually going to have a prize. So whoever gets the highest score will get a Type in Mania mug, which I think he has a picture of. Yeah, right down here. So that's the mug you would win. And all you have to do is just play an MC-10 game. So right now he's just taking the poll to see what game is going to be selected, and this has to be from the ones that he's compiled. So that limits the list from the thousands of games he does normally to just a dozen or so at this point. I don't know if he's going to have any more compiled games out before the poll is actually finalized. But it'd be an interesting project for people that just like to play the games and then aren't into the programming to try out some of his. It gives you a good excuse to try out some of his compiled games in the MC-10. And these also work on the MC-10 emulators. You can actually load them up online. There's an online MC-10 emulator where you can actually have it preload from a file locally on your computer. So if one of these games get picked, you can actually just send that to the emulator in the web and play it right there. You don't even need a real MC-10. So it'd be interesting to see what game gets picked first of all, and then see how people do and who gets the mug. And I think he's currently talking about around a mid to late May as a deadline. I'm not sure if he meant that the deadline to pick the game to play, or if that's a deadline to actually get the scores in. I'll have to verify that with Jim later on. Next up, we have a video from Ciaran Anscomb, the author of X-Roar. So this is the anniversary edition of his Dungeons ports to the CoCo Dragon. And in this case here, there's a version for the GMC that actually does the background sound on a Dragon 32 or a 32K CoCo. This here is demonstrating the 64K version that actually does some multi-voice sound playing in the background in software. So this does not require the hardware to do. So I thought I'd play it for those of you who have not seen it. It's a free download on his site. So. Nice volume effects he's got on it. I should mention this is a port from another platform that he did a few years back. It's on the original game, and it's loosely Gauntlet-ish, but not quite. Actually, one thing I like about it above Gauntlet is that actually it has 4 different areas of the screen for the 4 players, and you actually get to play your own. Like in Gauntlet games, all the players have to be on the same physical screen. So if one person going left, one person going right, you end up both stopping because it doesn't let you go off the screen. This actually keeps everything separate. Now, in this case, he's only showing a 1-player demo of it. But if you walk to different rooms, then the other players can go to completely different rooms. And when you cross paths again, you can actually see each other. So you can actually strategize and you go get the key over here. I'll go kill the monsters by this door type thing. So it actually makes the cooperative play, I think, a lot better. And it's a really fun game. You should definitely go give it a shot. And if you have the 64K RAM version, you can, of course, you have the background music there. Or if you have the GMC, you can do it on the 32K one. Now, this here is another one that's 60 had just recorded. He's actually got some recording hardware now, so you can record some of the stuff off the real CoCos and real Dragons. So this here is a smooth scrolling demo we showed before, except this time he's recording on real hardware instead of X-Roar. And he's also got artifacting enabled. Now, this is doing his smooth scrolling demo using some tricks on the VDG and this, I think just the VDG, not even the SAM, that we kind of talked about last week when he was doing it with text characters, but this is using graphics. I don't know if this is going to turn into a full game. He's still experimenting to see how much CPU time he has and what kind of a game he can design to fit it. But this will show you some sprites running back and forth across the screen while doing a smooth scroll, while updating a little score table, quite quickly in the background. And remember, this is CoCo 1 and 2 level here. This is not CoCo 3. And just at the stock 0.895 megahertz.
It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, to get that kind of speed with smooth scrolling, I mean, in software doing a stack blast, even you can't get it going that smooth. So it's a really cool trick. And the fact he's got the sprites moving across, it's really cool. It's nice to see this stuff as demos, but I mean, this has the potential to turning into a real game that really pushes the hardware.
And I wonder how it's keeping the score in the top left.
Well, my understanding is that it's changing modes because you can fool it into restarting the scanline timer.
Scanline,
like what scanline number it's doing. So you basically just turn it off for that little portion, then you start
right.
it in the horizontal border, from what I understand.
Yeah.
This one here is a quick plug for the Amigos. They've got the next CoCo Show came out this past week, which is their review of Rescue on Fractals. I won't play because it's a half an hour show type thing, and you definitely should go check it out on your own. It actually does mention near the end some of the optimizations I did, for the 609 and the Gimme X and stuff like that too, where the speed increase is pretty drastic. Out of all the 609 patches I've done, this is the game I did the most extensive patches to. And in fact, the 6809 version is a good 12-15% faster than the original Tandy version as well. So even those of you that don't have the upgrade, you should definitely go grab the 609 optimized version from the Color Computer Archive, which actually is now available as a separate disk image that you can download and just run it on its own. You don't have to get EOU or anything like that if you don't want to. And that version will still run on 128K too, because EOU with everything else preloaded, it takes 512.
So is the optimized version the picture on the bottom, is it?
Yeah, that took a bit tricky programming to do that there, but yeah. Smart ass. Case.
Thank you very much.
The last one here is Cuthbert Dragon, who kind of had yanked down the page, and he's done this a couple times. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if he just wants to refresh things or what he's doing here. But he's got his page back up with some Dragon stuff, and he's actually thrown a few games that we have not seen on his page before, like Soooorry I'd never seen before. The Dragon, PMO 3 versions of stuff like Moonhopper and Glackstacks I'd never seen before. I don't know, because the show's probably going to be running pretty long as it is. I don't know if I want to, play a bunch of them now. But he's got, over 25 games on there right now that he's thrown on. If you guys have a special request for any particular one or two you want to see, I'll show those. But
Moonhopper.
You want to see that in all of its PMO 3 glory, eh?
Well, I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, really? It looks better in artifacting.
So many colors.
This is an MG Lustig from, what do you call his company now? Arcade Animation Inc., I think it was. They did Wacky Food and Moonhopper and a couple other games.
Weird set of wheels. Is it
it's a tractor tread, basically.
It's like it's hovering.
Personally, I think it looks better in the artifact mode, but
yeah,
PAL you didn't have the option anyway. So, anyways, it's pretty cool. He does these videos. I just don't understand why he keeps yanking them down and kind of like restarting from scratch every time. So I'm probably not going to be mentioning his page too many more times in the future, unless he's got some game that we've never seen before. I've never seen before.
The Dodo or Doo-Doo?
Doo-Doo, I think. Anyway, if you want to check out some Dragon stuff, and these are shot on a real Dragon off of a real CRT with a camera. So this is not emulated in any way, shape, or form. This is running the stock software on the stock hardware type thing. And that is the end of the Game On news.
Okay, why don't you say we take a break?
I agree.
We need to replace the carpet.
Yeah, we've discovered what happened when Stevie tried to do that. So, and
you are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast, featuring the Tandy color computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the CoCo 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French Canadian CoCo 2, the Radio Shack.
Hi, this is Eddie Zerbinsky from beautiful Quebec City. Vous écoutez CoCoTALK.
As you're enjoying CoCoTALK, we also want to remind you about the CoCo Discord server. This is a place where people come to connect, to ask questions, to provide answers, to share information, and to socialize. So when you're done, why don't you head on over to the CoCo Discord server and we'll continue the conversation there. The easy to remember link is discord.cocotalk.live. See you on Discord. CoCo 123 is the Glenside Color Computer Club community newsletter that's been in publication since 1985. While the Rainbow magazine may be gone, it doesn't mean you still can't have a cool CoCo periodical. Head on over to the Glenside Color Computer website at glensideccc.com and then click on the Documents link to view all the past issues of the CoCo 123 newsletter. Not only can you read all of the past and present issues, we'd also love to hear some submissions from you. So if you'd like to send an article, a column, something to talk about, maybe even a program listing, send an email to glensideccc@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. The CoCo World Map is a cool community resource where you can view coconuts from around the world. Head on over to map.cocotalk.live and see where your fellow Coconutians happen to be living on the planet Earth. If you would like to submit yourself to be on the CoCo map, send an email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live, and we look forward to seeing you on the CoCo map. Hey guys, it's Stevie Strode, and if you've been watching CoCo Talk for a while, hopefully you understand that everyone is welcome to join this show. You don't need an impressive resume to get on. You just need to enjoy the CoCo and be willing to talk about it. There is no wrong way to CoCo. There is no wrong way to be a fan of the CoCo. There's no wrong way to be on CoCo Talk. You just have to want to talk CoCo. So if you would like to join us, then reach out to us on our Discord server, which is discord.cocotalk.live, or send an email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live, and let's get you on the show and let's talk about the CoCo.
Hi, I'm Tim, and you're watching CoCo Talk Live. And I'm playing Daggereth online like that idiot from the book.
Can you dial back on the condescension there as you respond there?
We now return you to CoCo Talk.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
And take it away, Curtis.
Okie dokie. Okay, so first up, Simon Jonassen, after seeing the demo that Ciaran had demonstrated last week, showing some of that smooth scrolling with the VDG screen and mixing modes and stuff and how the whole technique works, put up a couple things here regarding with mixing modes and doing weird timings. So the first one here is kind of using a technique similar to what Dragonfire, the game, used. Now that one's rather special because it's the only game we know of that actually changes the mode, not just vertically. There's a few programs that did that, but actually changes it horizontally, changes the color set so you actually can get 8 colors on the screen at once in P mode 3. In fact, sometimes it did it 5 times per scan line, which takes incredibly precise timing on a less than 1 megahertz machine. So here he took some screenshots where he's doing the same thing. I'll zoom one of these up here. So basically you can see he's doing, P mode 4 artifacting in color set 1, and then in color set 0, and then he kicks it into P mode 3, and it's kind of mixing all this together here. So he's actually changing it even more than 5 times per scan line. Now that takes such intense CPU time. I don't think you could really make a game out of it unless you were making like a graphical adventure game where a static image is going to stay on the screen or something, say the top half or something like that. But it's a pretty cool effect.
This must be how I created that Vegemite sound.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark. What were you saying?
Oh, cutscene between sections. You could do,
Yeah. Anything that's fairly static. I mean, you probably have some CPU time. Or if you did, like I said, a graphical adventure game where you say the top half of the screen, you're doing all this wicked timing. The bottom half, you're just having like a standard text input, and then you can take some CPU time to do that. And then next up, he did a bit of a video, which is showing the smooth vertical scrolling going between a hardware text screen, semi-graphics, and a graphics screen. Just a quick little demo here. So you can kind of see these sliding stuff in a scan line by scan line basis. Now the 4K demos rock part is just a static image that he used in the background. This obviously takes more than 4K because the picture on the bottom and in P mode 4 takes 6K by itself. So obviously this won't run in 4K as is. But it's a pretty cool effect. And it's using that same technique of changing, from what I understand anyway, is that it changes the video mode while in the horizontal border area. And that forces the VDG to start recounting where what scan line number it thinks it's on is. So rather than having to wait for a hardware text cell to finish, which you'd have to do on semi-graphics and stuff, this actually lets you kind of restart the counter every time. So you can switch between the modes on a pixel line by pixel line basis, which is what he's doing here, which can do some really neat effects. And Ciaran's demo kind of does some.
Is that the same girly used on the last demo?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Is that the same girly used on the last demo?
Yeah. Thankfully, he cut it off before, I don't know if you guys heard about the big controversy on Twitch this last couple of weeks. They were doing a demo-thon for the Atari 8-bits and the Amiga and the Atari ST and all these other machines. And of course, people in the demo scene in the 90s that were doing all these graphical demos used to put in naked women every once in a while because they're geeks and they're, that's just the way they were. And Twitch ended up actually yanking the stream live while thousands of people were watching and just banned it. They banned the channel, banned everything, they basically shut it right down in the middle of the show. And this was actually for a competition for best demo for the various machines. And they ended up having to get an alternate streamer in Europe, which is a bit more liberal with that kind of stuff, and finish the show on some totally different platform. And apparently are not planning on coming back to Twitch ever again because of it. So I'm glad he actually cut it off for there because we might get in the same trouble. Next up, Trey Tomes. Now, we were talking about that port of the ZZT game that he's doing, the kind of rogue style game using the IBM character set. This is a shot he did earlier of the actual character set itself, kind of demonstrating it. Now, if you look, he's got it kind of masking two different colors, but you look in the very top row, you can see like the happy faces and the card symbols like the hearts and diamonds and clubs and stuff. That first chunk there is the first 32 characters that the Nitrous 9 version does not currently have in it because those are reserved for, display codes for doing overlay windows and color changes and a bunch of other things. So that's the one we'd have to basically duplicate into a second font, and then you can switch back and forth. But you could do this under Nitrous 9 too. And the later characters, like the the little cursor patterns and stuff, the little line drawing stuff, that is in the Nitrous 9 one. So if you wanted to write a PC-based game and convert it over to CoCo, it would be pretty easy. Next up, Walter Zambotti, who's also the author of OVCC, which is a cross-platform version of VCC, has been working on converting some old Unix-style utilities to OS9 Nitrous 9. Him and Jeff Tennyson have been working together on figuring out quirks of the C compilers, because we're dealing with K and RC here. Most of the Unix stuff more recently is using much more advanced versions of C. And he actually got AWK to work after a fair bit of mucking back and forth, and it's based on the V732V version from Unix. Takes almost a full 64K process space to run, so will not run on level 1. You'll need level 2, CoCo 3 basically to do it, or another level 2 system like a Gimes or something. But it's actually up and running now. I've sent a message to him to approach him about including this on the ease of use distribution that is coming up in a couple of weeks here, which is basically be a bunch of software updates of various things. I'm hoping to actually have this included for those that want some of the Unix utilities. He's also got the source code available too on his site if you want to take a look at it.
I miss my Unix utilities. This will be cool.
What does AWK stand for? Or what is it?
Rick, do you want to give the details on AWK? Because I'm not that familiar with it.
Basically, it's a pattern matching language, so you can change anything into anything else on a text file. It's, I mean, you can write programs in AWK. It's way too hard to make a really short description, but you can change any text file into any other text file using AWK and a short script that you made. So if I have a task I have to complete over and over, I will write an AWK script to do it, and I don't have to keep fixing files every time I need to fix a file. I just let AWK fix it for me.
It's autocorrect manual?
Pretty much, yeah, some kind of autocorrect script. You can, well, and I want to turn every $sign into an $H sign. I can have AWK do it. If I was writing a deck
It's kind of like a global search and replace on file or files.
And more, yeah.
Cool.
So I'm assuming it does like pattern matching and stuff too, like, any 6-character thing that starts with an AF or something like that.
Exactly. And you can go down the regex nightmare. So.
And the side note is the name of it is actually AWK is the name of the original programmers of it. And it is where originally grep, the get regular expression, originally started.
So you're saying that Ken Reichert's lying on the comments where he says it's called AWK because it's awkward to use?
No, he's correct.
Well, I mean, we have other tools like SED and so forth that do a subset of the things that AWK can do. but because law can do so many things, it's kind of difficult to use. But if you're only going to have one thing, that's the thing to have.
Yeah, it's like Pearl. It's very difficult to use, but it does everything.
Oh, Pearl's not like that. She's a good dog.
I think it's James Jones said Aho, Weingarten, and Kernighan.
Oh, okay. Kernighan, as in Kernighan and
Yes.
Richie, the guys who created C.
Yeah.
Yes, as in the Brian Kernighan, the C inventor.
But you skipped over Aho.
Yeah, I can always remember Aho and Kernighan. I can't remember the W in it.
It's
Right? Who's
Weingarten.
Yeah.
Weingarten?
James also said that he'd rather use awk than Perl. So
Right. Perl can be made legible, but it doesn't have to be, which is its downfall because no enterprise programmer wants their program to be legible.
Is that a Star Trek term?
Yeah.
Well, no. If you're writing for a company, Hello World takes 2,700 lines and requires 7 libraries.
So enterprise equals business.
Exactly.
Okay.
okay. So anyway, I'm hoping to include that in EOU. Hopefully, I'll get permission from Walter to do so. Next up, we have Robert Gault, and he's mentioned here that he's done some patches to his EdTASM, which is his enhanced 609 capable EdTASM that also supports the 1480 column screens. This is based on the original EdTASM cartridge disk program with a lot of enhancements that Robert's done over the years, which is a commercial product. So he's enhanced it now to also support the VHA disks, the virtual hard drive disks, either on the SDC, and I'm assuming this works in emulators too, because you can make a hard drive image that actually contains a bunch of RS-DOS drive images within. This was natively done on the CoCo to support hard drives for disk basic, basically, because you'd make one big file that has like 256 disk images, and you just type drive 0, drive 15, drive 204, and it would switch between them instantly. Now, that had not been supported before on EdTASM. I believe it supported drive wire drives and then the physical drives, but only did drive 0 to 3. So now he's added in support to support these ones if you want to transfer it off, say, a Kenton SCSI drive or, the ID drive that Mark Millett at Cloud9 sold, et cetera, that had these virtual hard drive images that contained all these disk images for floppies, up to 256 at once in one file. And now EdTASM, the new version, will natively support that. So you can switch between them. So you only have to mount one hard drive image once, and then you can just switch between 256 virtual drives that are just basic instead of having to like remount like on the SSD. Now you have to put drive 0, quote, slash games dash C2 slash, gazon.disk or something like that, or go through the SDC Explorer, of course.
So you basically said that it's basically. I think I got that right.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's right. Basically, it lets you use these virtual hard drive images that are embedded disk images, and it does it natively within EdTASM itself. So you have access to 256 virtual drives without having to remount anything at all. It's all within the one image you got mounted, so you don't have to keep doing these extra drive commands. So I'm assuming he does. Nick, you can tell me because you actually use his EdTASM product.
Yeah,
which is commercial. Does he give updates for free, or does he eventually charge for those once every few years, or how does that work?
It's always been free to me.
I think
You're saying you're special then. Okay, gotcha.
I think it's standard. He gives patches out, as I recall.
Okay. So once you've purchased the actual EdTASM 609, which I think is the name of the commercial package he does, which is all the patches for 40 column, 80 column, 609 support, this would be
it's like
free.
$35 US, I think. Remember right? I bought it years ago. So.
Yeah, me too.
I know Nick swears by it. Because you've used it on every project I think you've done in the last
almost daily.
No, I didn't say swear at it. I meant no, I'm just kidding.
Works fine for me.
Yeah, I mean,
what
was the first project you did that you based on that version of the assembler? Like you've been using it for years.
Good question. I can't remember if it was Pac-Man or Gatecrasher.
So at least 20 years you've been using it.
Yeah, I bought it 20 years ago, and I'm still using it. And Robert has done a few upgrades over the years and bug fixes. There were some bugs as well I found for him, and he's fixed them up. It's working quite well.
Yeah. The best thing to say there is Robert supports this product.
Oh, yeah.
So updates like this or bug fixes, if you find some obscure, opcode on a 609 that nobody really tried before, If there's a problem with it, he will fix it.
And he doesn't eventually fixes it. He fixes it pretty well the next day. He's very good.
20 years of no bit rot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use it almost daily.
Yeah, David Sharon Veery also mentions on the comments there that he uses Robert 639 EdTasm and it works great. So right, there's an update for you guys that have EdTasm. So you'll have to contact Robert to get the update, of course, because since it is a commercial product, he won't just throw it up, for upload on Facebook or the archive. Next up after that, Barry Nelson has uploaded a special copy of HDB DOS meant for the CoCo STC and the CoCo Facebook group that you can copy into one of the ROM banks on the STC. And he recommends do not put it in bank 0, which is your standard STC DOS, because then you might break your STC if something goes wrong. So put it in one of the extra banks, basically. And this lets you change a disk offset within a hard drive image to support the virtual disks that HDB supports. Now, this is similar to what Robert's done. It's kind of the same thing, actually, except this is a more generic DOS that handles all this. So you can do the virtual hard drive image you mount once on the SDC, and then you can switch between the 256 RS-DOS drive images within it without having to swap it, on the SDC level again. It's just one file the SDC sees internally to itself, and then disk basic or HDB DOS in this case will actually see the 256 drives, and you just switch between them with the drive command. So it's kind of the same thing, except it's sent it to the whole quote-unquote operating system at this point. So that's a freebie download from him that you can install on your SDC. Especially handy if you had some of the old SCSI drives, the old ID drives, or SASE drives back in the day that used these extensions. I think they originally were done for RGB DOS, I believe, which was the Kenton SCSI interface, Roger Krupski's thing. So I think it's based on that, and it's been extended ever since, like the Burke and a bunch of others use something similar. So this will let you take those hard drive image files and actually copy them onto the SDC and then just run them without having to change them at all. You don't have to split all the disks out and do, copy them one at a time. You can just block copy the whole 256 drive image in one shot. So quite handy if you're switching from real hard drives back in the day to the SDC. Next up, Tandy Assembly is now looking for speakers for their October show, which is October 1st to the 3rd this year in Springfield, Ohio. And they're basically looking for assembly speakers and presentations, and have an email address you can see here, and the link will be provided in the chat. And then basically, because this is Tandy Assembly and not CoCoFest, this covers any of the TRS-80 and Tandy computers from back in the day. So the Model 1, 2, 3, 4, 4P, Pocket computers, the CoCos, the Tandy 1000 line, etc. Tandy Model 100s, etc. So if you have anything that you would like to talk about or basically do a presentation on at Tandy Assembly, please get in contact with them at the email address on this page, and let them know what you want to do, etc. And then they'll help you set up when your presentation will be, where it will be, at the facility, etc. Okay, this is one I'm going to play more than I usually do for a long video on this one, because I thought it was pretty fascinating. And I mentioned it into the pre-show here when we're talking to some of the hardware, because we've got quite a few hardware guys on the panel here. And basically what this is a project, and this is a place, it's actually Miami-Dade County, which I believe is in Florida. So I was hoping Steve would be on it because maybe he knows some of these people from his computer club stuff. But basically this guy, a YouTube channel called Rocky Hill, I don't know if that's his name or if that's just a pseudonym. He has this video showing he's received some clone boards of a CoCo 2 that he's ordered to make sure that a KiCad, is that the right pronunciation, schematic works properly. Now, this is part of a thing called the Bit Preserve project. KiCad?
CAD.
Yeah,
Okay.
Anyone will tell you different.
It's like GIF and GIF, right on. So basically, this thing called the Bit Preserve project is a project where they're trying to create KiCad compatible schematics for all the old ancient 8-bit systems, so that people can remake the boards, once they're not obviously not manufactured anymore, but they gradually start to die, they get cracked, or ants swarm on it, like in Simon Jonassen's case, or whatever, they get damaged. And this is a way to preserve those. We've got emulators preserving it from a software side. This is preserving from the hardware side. So he had ordered some based on a certain CoCo 2 revision board here, and you can see on the bottom is his original CoCo 2, and the top is his KiCad version that he received in the mail. And he actually goes through and he populates it, and he was kind of measuring it to make sure it fit properly on the right post, so the screws would still work to hook up the the cartridge connector for the cartridge on the side, make sure that the DIN plugs line up properly to go outside of the case of the CoCo 2. And actually, this for a first run of boards, almost everything fit. And he actually got it assembled enough he was able to fire up Megabug and play it with a joystick with the real cartridge plugged in. So he did really well. So I will play a little bit at the beginning, and then I'll kind of skip ahead. And I would love to hear some comments from you hardware guys on this.
So my first computer was a TRS-80 Color Computer 2. And recently I've contributed to the BitPreserve project by the Bald Engineer, James Lewis.
Actually, I'll skip the unboxing part.
Schematics,
the meat and potatoes of this.
Turn it up here.
Let's see what this looks like. Pack, that's for sure. Little.
Oh man, the bubble wrap thing was good.
Everywhere, but check that out.
And JLC charges extra if the box requires them to tape 2 of their boxes together to ship it.
This looks really nice. Let me see if I can get some light on this.
I'm convinced.
I wonder what version this is.
It's got the vertical oriented
Later on, I'll
RF
put it up
modulator. If
against,
that helps.
an actual board.
That's the American.
The original
board, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna fit, but I won't know until I fit it. All right.
I wonder if he'll make the
And take it
keyboard
apart
connection better too.
while filming with my cell phone. This is rather difficult.
Melty key.
I'll skip and taking apart a CoCo because I think we all know how that works.
And there is the board.
So that's the version of the board. If that helps you guys.
So now let me disconnect the transformer here. Actually, it was
Melty key
disconnected
twos were the first
because
ones,
I opened
and
it
it
not
looks
too long
like
ago.
the American board.
But let's remove the board. No, that screwdriver is a little bit too fat. Huh. Let's fit it in there. And holy moly, it almost fits perfectly. It's a little bit too long, but I think I can fix that. So it's too long on this edge here. But for testing, there are no traces here. I can just shave that down.
Now, have any of the rest of you ever
this is-
attempted something
this
like
is
this?
nice.
Duplicating a CoCo motherboard?
I was worried about these two holes
Nope.
here, and they
I've
line up
drawn a
perfectly.
CoCo keyboard on a circuit board, and it's almost impossible to get everything right. I'm still rearranging keys, so I'm
This is a little later when he's actually got some of the board, properly assembled.
It's looking pretty good. I'm almost there. It's pretty late right now, so I'm going to stop. And I'm assembling it over here with my, interactive bomb, which is really, really helpful.
Wow, look at those flashing things. It looks cool.
Anyhow, soon I'll be testing the TRS-80 Color Computer 2 clone.
I think it's interesting. Everyone thinks they have a schematic for these things. Actually making a usable schematic out of the pictures that you have is a monumental task. So this is impressive.
So here he was just making sure that the layout worked. These are not soldered in yet. So this is a bit earlier from that other picture he showed. Let's back it up a bit here.
So this isn't enhanced in any way. It's just a
No, it's
raw
basically
code.
just to clone it so you can actually, like if you have a circuit board and it's cracked, you can just order one of these and then just swap everything over and you're back up. And
All
running.
right. Gee, it would have been good if he just did a few extras like ditch that RF and put a composite video in there instead.
Well, I mean, you definitely could. I mean, the thing is, you would have a working, functional one that all the chips work together properly, like they're
All this
supposed to.
stuff I
RAM
found
and SAM
online
and
on DigiKey.
so you can actually
But I mean-
modify it to do that.
So it looks
I mean,
good
it's
there.
part of
So
this board.
I hope you can see
If he was
this.
redesigning it, get rid of the RF.
Again,
Yeah, but you have to make sure it works
this is
first.
gonna line
As
up,
Rick
'cause I
pointed
tested
out,
it
most
already.
people that have tried doing this, it doesn't work. Like some little trace that you thought on the schematic said this really isn't right, and then all of a sudden, the RAM refresh doesn't work or whatever weird problem happens. This is functioning and working. So now you have a base that you know works. Now you can do the modifications like you're mentioning.
Right. It's KiCad. You can change it.
Besides
All right,
that,
all
I
right,
mean,
Nick. Just for
Ed-
you, I'll get it. I'll download it and fix it for composite video.
Sorry, Mark, you were saying Marco Rosa?
Oh, I was just going to say, Ed already has, the composite modulators for this. So you just don't transfer the RF one. You just get Ed's and drop it and spot on the board.
Yeah,
There
I
you
guess
go.
so.
Right. Anything that's ever been made for CoCo 2 will fit this.
Back of the
you do it right.
case, as long as I line this end up.
Yeah, but in the end, are you going to pay 3 times what a CoCo 2 would cost?
Okay.
Well, if this gets popular
Yeah,
enough and you order it in bulk, then it won't be that
I can
expensive.
show you this.
Right.
Yeah, also,
So that's a
CoCo
good
2s aren't
fit.
manufactured anymore. That's the
This
main.
is a way to
You know,
replace
those connectors
the
are
motherboards
there.
as they
Now
die.
the reset switch, I couldn't
Either
find
way, it's not going to
the
be cheap
exact one that
because
it
the
had or
work
anything
involved
close to
in
it, so I
putting
just
all the
used a,
components on it.
reset switch.
Yeah.
It looks like it lined up. I'm not worried about that too much.
Well, you could buy.
but
You could,
the
you
RF
could populate
can,
it yourself.
came out perfect.
This still has
Now,
a cam
here's-
chip you can't buy.
I mean, you can see it.
Yeah, I was
going to
say,
there.
what
you know,
what chips can you buy
and then
not
the
what
DIN
parts can you
connectors
buy
are perfectly
and not
lined up.
buy?
I can
Actually,
fit
you
something
can
in
buy
there. I don't
kits
have to
on
modify
eBay.
the
I have
case.
one that came
I
from
mean,
China
that's the
that
whole
has
idea,
all the
not to
basic
modify the
components.
case. And power switch
Well,
there.
including ROM chips and
I'm
the
quite
salt
happy
chip.
so far.
Well,
with
ROM
this
chips you can
revision.
just burn your own.
Rev
That's not
1.
hard. You can
I
still
think
get the ROM
it's
chips.
it's
You just
close
have to burn it
enough
yourself
where
or
I
get
will
somebody to do it
decide
for you.
to
Is it legal to
populate
do that?
it and see if it works.
Yeah,
So
Well, that's where you get in the
Yeah,
gray
ROM.
area because if you're replacing a motherboard that cracked and you have the
You already
original
have the
ROMs,
ROM. You already have the ROM.
yeah,
Just
it's
move it
totally
over.
legal.
Yeah.
You just transfer it over.
Okay, so it's technically legal if you own the machine. It's technically legal to
Yeah.
burn.
Because he
replacement
mentioned at the
chips.
very beginning of this video here, this CoCo 2 motherboard that he's been showing to compare it to is non-functional. It doesn't work.
Mhm.
Like this is a dead CoCo 2 that he
But
had.
it's got
and-
some sweet parts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, like, aren't there certain parts like the salt chip? Isn't that not
Salt
available?
chip was a CoCo 1, isn't it? I don't think it's on the CoCo 2.
Well, no, there's salts everywhere, but the idea of finding a board with, good chips are easier to find than good boards. You could buy 50 dead
Okay, I see what
CoCos and
you're
you've
saying,
got
yeah.
at least, 5 good ones.
But
I see what
later
you're
he
saying.
could redesign it with more commonly available parts.
Yeah, you could.
Possibility.
Well, yeah,
Right.
you could buy a pie
But
and
Ed
an
already did that.
emulator.
And I've
Ed
seen,
already did that.
and this is really great because I've seen replacement boards for Commodores and for Spectrum has one now. And it's nice to see a replacement board for CoCos because, to get to the point where you could buy all the components to build one new, they're not manufactured anymore. And eventually, they're going to become prohibitively expensive to purchase on eBay and such. And to be able to, buy all the parts and make one brand new is, I think, just an awesome thing. I was just curious about certain chips that.
But all those Commodore replacement boards that are out there are usually got enhancements as well. So you are getting enhancements. That's why what I said, why have a standard CoCo 2 board? Put some enhancements in as well while you're at it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, well, like Curtis said, start
like
with
design
But you need a
working
base that
board.
works first, and that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, this is just first draft.
Hey,
Right.
how come the motherboard isn't the right color?
And where's the real-time clock?
You're just
Yeah.
laughing. You're not,
Actually, Nick,
Nick,
this comes to what we were discussing offline yesterday. I mean, the MSX2 Plus for the Dragon, for example, which has a sprite and a sound chip, you could enhance it with that.
Yeah, that's a plug-in though. Yeah.
No, but it wouldn't have to be a plugin if you redesign the board to accept that natively right on it. You
Oh
wouldn't even-
yeah, I see what you mean. But then is it a CoCo anymore?
and
That's
then they're
This
distorting
going
can't
it too
satisfy
much.
these Aussies. I don't know.
It's
Well, you can make the
distorting
same
it too
argument
much.
about
Devil's advocate,
CoCo
all the way
VGA or Give Me
Yeah.
X and stuff.
You could also have the MPI slide out from the side.
Yeah. The thing is, it gives you a base to be able to recreate the circuit board, which is not something anybody has been able to do up until now that I've seen, unless you guys can correct me. I don't know of a replacement motherboard.
Is
You
it- is
can
it-
get chipsets. You can get people that have got 609 still on sale. You got VDGs. You got RAM chips. You got a lot of the stuff you can still get. It may be used stock or whatever or old stock, but there's still a ton of it available to buy. You can't get CoCo motherboards. Tandy doesn't sell them.
Right.
Like,
And
you
if
get
this
one,
is
when you get one that somebody's lifted too many traces on,
Yeah, then it's
Right.
kind of screwed anyway. You just toss it. This way, you can actually replace it.
salvage it and replace it.
So this is if you want to keep the yellow case and yellow keys that you already have.
Yeah.
Well, no, we'll be 3D printing our way out of that problem too shortly. So that's
I think it's going to be a bit expensive.
Keyboard. Plus, if you have it apart, you can do what you want with it. You can retrowrite it or paint it.
Yep.
And is this KeyCAD schematic available?
Apparently it is. From I understand, it's on that Bit Preserve site or somewhere that they mentioned. So I don't have too many details on that. I'm hoping you hardware guys can kind of follow up on this.
Well, that's the thing. If you can change if you have that schematic, you can change the footprints of each chip to, a quad fat pack, whatever you need, different RAM. Once you have that KeyCAD schematic, you can funge it. It's fungible. You can change everything. Where before you had nothing.
So you gotta have,
I think what this guy's doing is great.
You gotta have 2 processors.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's your limit. Basically, it's whatever you can design. But it at the very least, it gives you a way to replace a bad motherboard. If the chips are fine, but you had a crack, somebody dropped it, and all of a sudden the motherboard cracked. You don't know where the trace cracked, the cracked traces are, etc. So you have a base to do it. But because it's an electronic file to create these, like Rick said, you can then modify it. Build in the composite, build in an RGB coming right off the VDG chip if you want. Do an HDMI out on it. Add in a sprite chip, add in a sound chip, add in a real-time clock, add them all, whatever you want to do. You basically have the ability that you have a known working base prototype that if you just plug in the original chips, it works as a functioning CoCo. It is a CoCo. It's just with a modern circuit board, but you can take that wherever you want. You can make it just as a straight replacement like he's done here. You can add in very minor things like a composite mod, or you can take it to being a CoCo 2 Plus or whatever you want to. You could do this with a CoCo 3 motherboard. Make it so the Gimme X is native on the board. You don't need any socket or anything else. It's all just built right on.
And that's probably coming from Ed soon.
And wouldn't it be cool to have your own name on your motherboard?
Right.
I think that's where Ed wants to ultimately go with it.
Yeah.
Because he talked about the Gimme X being the
Frost.
The beginnings of a replacement CoCo 3.
The idea is to have a direct
But
replacement.
see, that is an enhanced board then.
CoCo 2.
With the Gimme X in there, it'll be an enhanced.
As possible.
Yep.
It's not.
The thing is, you can do it either way. If you want
board,
enhanced, you can. If you're a person that wants the stock
two or
stuff,
three
you can do that.
things that I found with it.
What's he done with the video there?
I did find that the model I used for the SAM
He
chip
just did
had
some
the
straight wiring because he didn't want to mount the RF thing.
Make a little fix
the
here.
RF can because I think he was contemplating whether he wants to go composite
the
or not.
board was a little bit longer.
So all those parts came from the non-working board.
So I'm gonna have to reorder
most
some
of them.
boards, but aside from that, it looks
So
like
his
it's
problem
working.
was
It
the
loaded
board,
basically
not
fine.
the
I was able
part.
to write a couple of programs, test it out.
I had one of those
cheap
too. My
with
old
a
D-board
RF
CoCo, the
can,
chips will work, but the board had a crack in it
with
from a
jumbo
move,
wires.
and I never could get it working, so I ended up tossing.
Megabug is in
Kind of
here.
wish I didn't know.
I've got the joystick.
It's a lot of
plugged in.
work for a cracked board, though. I
And then
would have
have
thought it'd
these
be easier to
connectors here
fix a
soldered
cracked
in.
board.
I need to solder the other ones.
No.
Finding
Well, I had a
is
few
built
people that
using
know
brand new
electronics and that
components,
they couldn't figure
except
that
for
out.
Oh, you have to
can't
know a
get
fair
it
bit
more
of
like,
electronics
the
to be able to
processor,
do
the SAM
this.
chip, the VDG.
No, you just because it's an available thing, you just order it now. Schematic's
Yeah, but
done.
if you've got to put all the chips,
But I mean, I
he's,
can use
he's
this
going
as
to
a base
supply
later
all
on
the
to
chips
start
and everything.
replacing, some of these hard to get components with newer ones.
No, I think he's just doing boards. I mean, you probably
Yeah,
replace
that's what I
it.
mean.
Up with a
That's what I
replacement
mean.
with
There's still a
most
lot
of the
of work
components
after
that I
this.
can put into this thing.
So if you can
Yeah,
do
anyhow,
that, you could probably
let's-
fix a cracked
let's test
board.
this guy out.
Yeah, no argument there. It would be a lot to
Turn on.
populate this.
This would
board.
be fun. This
I
is a
mean,
fun project.
Not necessarily. You have to know where the
Maybe
enter
you can hear it.
pad things
you can,
are. So
but
you have a
Megabug is
trace on
loaded.
the top, trace on the
It looks
bottom.
pretty good. I had to adjust the variable
I mean,
capacitor that's on
fixing a
there
crack is easy.
Get the colors
Finding the
right.
crack is the hard part.
because it's an NTSC signal, so it depends directly on the crystal on there.
Crappy RF and
But
all.
other than that,
Yep.
I mean, I think it
Yep.
came out pretty damn good.
Hey, that's
Let me see if I can play
that's
with
a
the joystick
different
here.
color artifacting.
With one hand.
His video's out of phase. He's getting that alternate artifact.
Either that
colours.
or he mucked with his tin control on the TV.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can
well,
get this on
that's
my
the alternate
Magnavox.
color
left,
set.
maybe.
That was what the
Up.
deluxe CoCo was
Hard to
supposed
do.
to provide.
Left, up,
Yeah, it had the
alternate
phase
set.
shift thing.
You had the
Down.
purple and the green.
on up.
Yeah, and also had the white and blue
Down.
text too.
Yeah. So he's got something wrong there, but probably doesn't look too bad. Or if you could put a switch in there.
But the fact is, he created this KeyCAD file,
This is
and this is the
hilarious.
very first boards he ordered. Like most of the time when you're doing this board development, from what I understand, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, You have to go through
Yeah,
several
multiple
functions of
revs.
these. You have to
Yeah.
like get one, and you have to muck with it because it didn't work.
I think
This
is,
worked first try, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Probably the best I've ever done. Now I've had obviously better games.
Yeah,
than
that's really quite.
But
Well,
it-
he
but
just
you know what,
basically
let's die,
copied the
see if
board
we
too,
can
right?
hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as he pointed out, and he mentions at the beginning of the video, the original schematics from Tandy are not right. In fact,
Right.
rarely are schematics 100% correct, from what I understand. On
Yeah,
stuff
there's usually a thing here and there, and a lot of times companies will go to, go to production, and just solder in a few bodge wires to fix mistakes, as opposed
yeah,
to
my
running
D board
another
had a
one.
ton of bodge wires on it because it was not functional from the factory.
Well,
There was
and
a ton
the,
of stuff that had.
and the KiCad workflow is you create the schematic and then you create the circuit board out of whole cloth. So you don't get to use any part of the original as your source. You have to redraw it so that it agrees with the schematic and they all agree with the rules checker and that all agree, it's.
Oh, is that why they do the bodge wire thing? Because they talk about the expense of doing another revision of the board.
Called the board spin. Yeah, sometimes it's easier just to put some bodge wires in instead of respinning the board, especially if you made a couple 100,000 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you got cheap labor in China soldering the wires on too.
Well, now you do. Back then, they weren't done in China. They were done in
Korea
Fort
or
Worth, so-
Japan, the different place.
So there's
Wherever they
only
ship
going to
labor.
be certain CoCos you can do this with because the arrangement of the hardware.
Technically, no. I mean, you'd have to
No.
basically duplicate this process for whatever board, but you can make a CoCo 3 motherboard. You can make a
Right,
CoCo
because-
2B motherboard. You can make a CoCo 1 motherboard. It doesn't matter.
Because KiCad will tell you if you've done anything wrong with your board drawing, it will tell you it doesn't match the schematic and where you've gone wrong. So
Yeah, nowadays.
you've got like once you've got the schematic for KiCad, you've got training wheels and you can drop your board. Like when I did the old fast 232, it was all a manual process and I screwed it up 3 times,
You
Where
gotta
this
figure
would
the
have
guy-
told me.
So the
You're wrong.
software knows the function of each chip.
Well, no, but it knows what your schematic was. And so as you draw a new board, it will tell you you got it wrong, or, it shows you what connections you need to make. You draw them out. It makes sure that you've got them all right before you spend money. Where in the old days, you spent money first and then saw if it worked.
Yeah,
or
you
not.
prototyped it first, then you found all the problems.
Right. And then you bought another one.
You have to figure this guy probably had his calipers out there and he was measuring all the components, distances from the edge and everything on his original board and laying out his new circuit board and then matching the schematic to it.
But then if you want to do something different, you change the schematic, you go to your circuit board again, and it will show you why it's wrong now compared to your changed schematic, and you can move things around. And so, yeah, this is a big deal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it took some work, or I'd imagine it would have taken some work to get to this point.
Yeah, and I mean the thing one, it's a pretty interesting discussion from the hardware side of things, and the fact that there's now the capability of replacing an entire circuit board for a CoCo.
Yeah.
Because the CoCo motherboards, once they're gone, I mean, you're basically living with emulators or misters or something at that point, because there's no other place until now to get one.
So will a computer help you move components around so you can match some of the other cases that have different layouts?
Oh, yeah.
Rick? Yeah.
Yeah, if I want to lay my vertical if I want to lay my video modulator sideways, I just change the footprint to a sideways video modulator, delete the old one, try to drop the new one in. It'll tell me why it's all screwed up, and I move the traces around until it works again. That may or may not match the original CoCo, but it will be pin for pin compatible, so all the parts plug in to the same holes.
Which means you could also make then CoCo motherboards for custom cases.
Exactly. Move things around for any case style you want for
You
different.
want a
size
square case,
chips.
you want a pizza, desktop case like some of the PCs use, or a tower or
Isn't
whatever.
that
You
what
can just
it's
ladle them.
done?
So
It's
you could
already
have
done
one
that.
for a T1 board, right?
Sorry, was
Right,
that wrong?
T1, lowercase,
Yeah,
T1.
yeah, because the pinouts on the VDG, for example, are different than a regular VDG.
Right.
Right. So you change your footprint for the different VDG chip. And when you exported that net list to your circuit board, it would say, well, you need to move this to here, this to there, that to here for the other VT chip. You don't have to figure it out. You just have to follow their lead.
You know, it's really cool to be able to understand how it works, but not actually be able to do it.
A comment from Robert Sieg. He said one good thing about this is that you can actually make this new board so everything's socketed instead of having to solder everything like we have to do currently on CoCo 3s and later CoCo 2s.
And you can use a real pin header for the keyboard instead of this stupid Mylar ribbon thing.
Yeah. Or you could add in, say, an AT keyboard interface if you want to make that your custom add-on to it, and then just have it,
just get a CoCo Mac. Go with head.
It opens up a lot of opportunity for hardware designers, and also opens up a lot of opportunity to resurrect machines where the chips are good but the circuit boards are bad. It holds a lot of potential, I guess, is what I would say. There's a lot of things you can do with this, and the fact that somebody's actually taken the time to get this to work right, so we can actually duplicate a CoCo 2 motherboard completely, is a huge step in that direction. Now you have a base that is known to work instead of having to second guess it yourself or try to figure out what's wrong in the schematic. I know Disto, Tony DiStefano, was quite famous. Even when he did his published Turn of the Screw thing, he'd always have a mistake on purpose on any of his commercial boards that you would have to figure out to actually get it to work. They never worked the way that he published them. And that was part of his copy protection for his hardware designs. I remember Mark Marlette used to complain about that a lot, even talking to Tony at the shows. And Tony said, yeah, I do that on purpose so people don't steal my designs type thing. So, they have to figure out, that these two things are swapped around because this actually literally will not work the way it's published.
So you can steal it, but you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad it came up as a discussion topic. It was something totally unexpected. I did not expect to find a video like this when I was looking for news this week. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So actually, he could make the board black or red or.
Yeah, you can pick.
Well,
colors.
it's up to wherever you get the board manufactured afterwards. So. I'm assuming with you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Rick, but KeyCAD I'm assuming is a standard that a lot of board manufacturers use, so you can just approach whoever makes that particular size of board.
Yeah, it's a big thing now. I mean, it's right up there with Eagle and all these other.
They actually output standardized files in Gerber format that most CAD programs will output. So it doesn't really matter which layout program you use. They all put out a standard file that any of the board manufacturers can use.
Gerber
so actually, you could put a CoCo Pi on a board and have all the pinouts go to the proper places so that when you put the cover on, it looks stock.
Well, the thing is, boards cost by the inch. So a CoCo board is pretty expensive, just like my keyboard experiment was pretty expensive because the board was so big. So a Pi, he would just want to run, jumpers, extenders.
It'd be better making small subboards and having one that's mounted for the cartridge and a small strip at the back for the edge connectors and stuff, and then run them to the Pi.
Yeah.
The acreage costs money.
So what do you think this thing cost?
He didn't mention that, so I don't know. But this was just his first, batch of prototypes to even see if the design worked, if it fit in the case properly, and he lucked out that pretty well everything did. He had to do a little bit of shaving.
PCB is what his box said, so you can.
Yeah, and that's going to be maybe $12 for a board this size.
Really?
I'd say 15 to 17, but
it's not bad. I mean, shipping is more than the cost of the board.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And it takes longer. I got it.
No.
And the postman will crack it in the mail for you. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he said you got 5 boards for $30.
Back to square one, where you started, the crack board.
Yeah, that's your proto price.
Yeah, so you get $6 a board on this prototype.
If you're willing to pay the DHL shipping, you can have them in like 3 days. Cost you about $30 though.
Anyway, for you hardware guys that know what you're talking about, and there's a lot more than I do, I would love if you guys could contact them through the YouTube comments, maybe kind of get them into the CoCo community as a whole here. And maybe we can get them on the show to talk about it too. And also, maybe talk about doing, designs that go above and beyond the original CoCo type thing.
Hey, Rick.
So he's got the price in the video there, 5 boards for $30.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. That's the prototype cost. So.
Hey, Rick, when you pull out those resistors and stuff from the old board and put them in the new board, they're already clipped for being installed. So sometimes do you think you would replace those instead? Or
yeah, I always replace resistors and caps. The only thing I would keep is chips. And I would replace all of the LS series chips that I have a junk box full because they're like 3 cents a piece. And
Well, what about that crystal?
well, you know, there's a lot of things you can buy for next to nothing. And I would,
Yeah, the
I would
crystals are like,
replace all of
you can buy
those.
those in measured in cents.
Or JLC will put them in. I have a project where the cost of the parts that are on the board cost more from any supplier than the board assembled from JLPCB with the board and everything. So I actually buy
to pay them.
So I buy boards fully stuffed, desolder the parts I don't need, and I've saved money on those parts. Which will come up later, possibly.
Anyway, Rick, if you or Mark or any of the other hardware-oriented people on the call here, or even people listening out in out in Facebook and YouTube land, can contact him on the YouTube comments there. I'd love to see if you guys can maybe get him to maybe come on the show, or even just talk between yourselves and them, or and him, and then actually kind of find out where he wants to go with this, and maybe opportunities to work together, that kind of thing. Because I think it's a pretty fascinating project. And maybe also get involved in that bit preserve thing. Like maybe we can get the CoCo 3 preserved so we can duplicate those motherboards later on.
And this is Rocky Hill?
Yeah.
Which ties into the whole ZZ Top Dusty Hill thing. So, okay, we're good.
The next one here is specifically for Ron.
Oh, right.
So we were talking a couple of weeks ago, we were trying to find copies of these original CoCo educational programs that actually use the cassette with the motor on, audio on commands as part of the program to actually have spoken word in between and kind of teach you things. And there was a couple of these, and they were pretty expensive back in the day, and they're pretty hard to find. So Michael Pittsley, who I think is actually on the Facebook group, I don't think he's a member of the Discord here, the CoCo Discord, but he actually had a copy of it, and he's actually played the entire lesson, which is 30 minutes. So obviously I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but
Astronomy, the solar system, featuring the discovery of the planet Pluto.
That sounds kind of quiet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll show a little bit of the beginning, then I'll fast forward a bit, because Clyde Tombaugh, that person who actually did discover Pluto, as actually one of the voice people on this later on in the presentation.
Is this the Walt Disney Pluto?
No, this is the planet Pluto.
The planet.
Actually, Walt Disney did put out some software though that worked the same way, where there was
in consultation with Dr. Clyde W.
audio
Tombaugh,
mixed in with the
Professor
data.
Emeritus of Astronomy at New Mexico State University. Dr. Tombaugh is the scientist who made the remarkable discovery of the planet Pluto.
He's got a radio voice.
Yeah, that's not Clyde. That's the narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they definitely hired a professional narrator too.
Again, says not a planet. I'm sure Clyde would
Chair
disagree.
to a south-facing window. Turn out the lights and look at the stars. They'll look something like this. And if you sit and watch for a while, you'll see that the rotation of the Earth makes the stars appear to move from
Oh, it
east
sounds
to
like the
west.
guy from that
is, left to
sci-fi
right across
TV
your
series.
south-facing window.
What was it, in the 50s or whatever?
Twilight Zone, you mean? Rod Serling?
What was it called?
Twilight Zone with Rod Serling, is that what you're talking about?
Earlier,
Oh,
you'll
maybe,
see that
yeah.
the star positions are the same as they were the week before.
Twilight Zone.
All that is except for one bright object. We'll
And I'm not going to play the whole thing here, but I'll fast forward a bit. So it does a kind of a history of the planets, the ones that were discovered in ancient times, and explains how they got the name planet and that type of thing. Little graphics, to kind of represent each of them.
Radar measurements. Jupiter has more than twice
Drawing some of the details like the Galilean moons and the red spot,
solar
etc.
system. Several Earth
Red spot's much smaller now.
Yeah, shrunk quite a bit.
were due to
Looks
the
black to
existence
me.
of another planet beyond. In 1915, he
It goes to the history of trying to predict
calculations of
Planet
the
X and how to find it.
With his death a year later, search for the planet was
And
discontinued.
of course, Clyde Tombaugh took over from Percival Lowell at the Lowell Observatory. I'm sure Ron knows all this.
Yep, that's true.
The search
I got
for
a
Planet
Lowell
X was
Observatory
resumed
cup.
when in the spring of 1929, a new telescope.
Cool.
Those in the first photograph except for one. With so many stars,
And this is how I discovered the blink comparator, where basically two photographic plates that would just flash between you. You have to take a look and stare at it and see what dot moved.
Yeah, and flip
Or
back
if
and
a dot
forth.
moved.
Yeah, sit there and flip back and forth and look at a specific spot and then move to the next one. Basically check every star to see if it moved.
Now this one's emphasized, like he's made the Pluto star, quite a bit bigger in the lower right. There you can see flashing between the two. On the real plates, if you've seen those, it's a pretty minor dim star that you're checking to see if it moved. This is a job that would have drove me nuts.
What two instruments did the observatory?
Yeah, but when you make that discovery, though, that boy, I tell you,
Yeah.
nowadays it's all done.
Now
with
it's the computer just compares, there's pixels here that's not over here. I found it.
Yep.
Well, and everything moves a little bit because of the atmosphere and so forth. So.
Yeah, the distortion of the heat. Now, mind you, they use that laser guiding star thing to get rid of the ripple effect now too, which helps.
Even more important than having
Recognize the face there, Ron?
for Planet X, Lowell Observatory needed a careful observer who was willing to work long hours and would quickly learn to operate the delicate equipment. Just such a person was Clyde W. Tombaugh, who came to work at the observatory in January of 1929.
So a lot of other computers didn't do this type of thing, did it?
I don't think too many other computers had the audio on capability on the cassette, did they? And the motor control, so they could
Correct.
actually pause and wait for the graphics and whatever if they timed it.
Right, and turn the audio on and off so that you're not listening to data come in when it's loading data. Because it'll load the program and then it'll play and you'll hear audio while the program's running. And then
it'll shut the audio off, load in the next part of the program if it's too big to fit in memory, and just continue.
The graphics and such. It was mainly the program loaded generally at the beginning, and then throughout it was just essentially loading in graphics from there on out.
Yeah.
It was multimedia before multimedia was a thing.
Right.
And that's Clyde's voice there for you.
And with very cold nights, lots of deep snow. Although the nights were cold and the hours long, I was a young man and thrilled to have the opportunity to participate in the search for Planet X.
And of course, some of Clyde's ashes went out with New Horizons, so he's actually flown by the planet he discovered.
The plane in which the Earth orbits,
I guess he was a real jokester when he was alive. He'd always have puns, he would say.
Plus, he lived to a ripe old age. He was in his 90s when he died, wasn't
he? Yeah.
I think New Horizons obviously was that's something I think he knew was in the works when he died. Obviously he was already passed away
Really?
at the launch.
Yep.
He lived that long that New Horizons was in the works.
To wind its way in and out among groupings of bright stars. Groupings of stars are
Hey, I won't play the whole thing here because I know Ron will want to listen to it without us all talking over it.
That's all right.
But it's a pretty cool multimedia presentation from 1982. I mean, this is CoCo 1 even before the CoCo 2 came out. So
it runs like 29 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's one thing I enjoy. I try and find stuff that I can play while I'm doing stuff and, to run for a while by itself. And some games do. And this would be one.
Yeah. And it's educational.
Yeah. Speaking of New Horizons, 16 years ago, I put my name in so that there's a CD that's affixed to the spacecraft that has the names of everybody who signed up to get their name on the CD. So floating out, past Pluto is my name.
Yeah, my name's on one of the landers, and I think it's Pathfinder, one of those Mars ships. My name is on.
Yeah, mine's on the
the
latest one that just landed.
Yeah.
My name's on that one.
That's
That
pretty
one's
cool.
It's on a computer chip. And it's actually, I thought, they just digitally, there's a bunch of ones and zeros that have all these names in ASCII or something, but they actually engraved. So you could actually, with a microscope, you could read your name off the chip.
Yeah, I don't have anything like that to claim. I just think most aliens probably use my name as a swear word. It's a pretty fascinating. This is a rare thing to find functional because these were cassette tapes. They get stretched, they get degaussed or whatever. Something goes wrong. And because it was an educational program in the early days of the computer revolution, I don't think a lot of these were sold. So I know Ron had been looking for one of these for a while.
You know what I would do is put that on my CoCo VGA and change the colors.
But these are I think are exceedingly rare. So the fact that Michael actually has a functioning one and was able to record the video so the rest of us could see it was pretty awesome.
Great job.
Disney had put out a bunch of educational software too that was similar to this, where it had the combination of audio and graphics. And I remember when I saw that, I was majorly impressed because, like you said, it was multimedia before there was multimedia, and I could see the capabilities. Yeah, and it's, I mean, the quality of an audio tape on a regular cassette recorder that you use to load programs is, like Nick was talking about earlier, when you're trying to do samples and stuff like that. This is a half an hour worth of some guy talking, and it's high quality audio.
And you pump it into a monitor and it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
CoCo Forever was the same deal.
Kind of.
MP3s.
That's digital recording, so it's probably a bit cleaner than an audio cassette would have been, but yeah. But for 1982 to have educational programs like this, and they also had spoken word books, like there was the Hound of the Baskervilles and some of these other ones where you kind of read along type thing, and some of the Disney ones, which actually Michael Pittsley, the guy that did this video, has put up videos of those before. We've actually had on the show of some of the Disney ones, the educational games, but just having the whole multimedia thing, which was pretty unique to the CoCo at the time. There might have been one or two machines, but most of the other machines did not have this capability. So we were way ahead of the curve on that one.
Just think, we could have invented karaoke.
Well, okay, there is some downsides to it, but
I'm kind of surprised that it didn't take off more, because the color computer, this is like you said, is a feature that you didn't see on a lot of other computers because it didn't have that audio on and audio off capability. And the CoCo did have that ability, and also to pipe the audio in through the TV speaker. So it really, I thought when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is really neat. And I thought it would get more popular than it did.
I think the main reason it didn't is that, kids learn at different rates. So the pre-programmed timing of how long it takes to present certain things maybe was too fast for certain students, and then you can't slow it down. So then you have to stop the program, rewind the tape to the right spot, and carry it on. So I think it kind of got stuck with that until we got stuff like CDs and stuff that actually could do a rewind and repaste itself, or
pause
restart
until somebody's ready to continue. Yeah.
I think that's why it took that long for it to really take off as a proper educational tool. But this is definitely the precursor to that. And without this, I don't think that would have happened.
And
this
now
showed you the
preserved.
potential. Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
And now we've preserved it.
Yep. So big thank you to Michael for putting that up.
Good job, Mike.
All righty, next up. Now we're getting into machine-specific news. The first three stories here are for the MC-10. So Robert Sieg, who's kind of the Jim Gerrie II of the MC-10 community, mentions he's updated his drawing program for the MCX32 hardware add-on that we demoed last week, and it now allows saving those 32x16 graphics as clip art. So last week we showed he had this thing for editing basically a P-mode, P-mode 1 screen, 128x96x4 color. And you'd basically select a little rectangular box of 32x16 pixels, and you'd hit a key, and it would flip over to the semi-graphics mode, which is the 32x16 text screen, except it would use the color blocks, and you could fill in the actual colors. So if you're editing, color set 0, it would give you the option of green, yellow, blue, and red, and you could draw the graphics, and then it would copy it back onto the high-res screen. And he had little pictures of spaceships and whatever else. So what he's done here now is he actually has added the capability of that program that you can take these 32x16s and then save them out as clip art, which means you can use them later as sprites. Now that Mario thing I showed you earlier in the game news is basically based on that, where you can actually clip the parts out and then you can make animations or special borders or whatever you want to do. So his program here that he's uploaded on the Facebook group actually has this new capability added to it. So if you have an MC-10, it requires the MCX32. So if you have that handy, you can actually use this. And then Jim McClellan has also been pretty active on the MC-10. He's been fiddling around with printers. So we showed him using the TP10 printer before. And now he's working what he's calling the itty bitty banner maker, which is going to be a way to use the MC-10 to create banners. you basically you type in your text and it makes these huge text characters coming out sideways, and you can like tape them together and make posters or banners that stretch across a room or something like that. I remember using these on the CoCo and the Apple II back in the day with the line printers. I hadn't really seen one for the TP10, but he's actually actively working that program. So once he gets it up there, I mean, you'll be able to do all kinds of fancy printer things with your MC-10, which is cool. This is another video I found fascinating by accident. So you guys have heard of the Alice, which is the French version of the MC-10, which came in a red case, which I think most of us are at least somewhat familiar with. I don't think I've ever seen the Alice 90 before. This is a sequel. And this is also a 6803, and it's backwards compatible. As you can see here, it has a real keyboard,
Yeah.
a bit of a bigger case, has the SCART connector to hook up to your TV in Europe. It also comes with 32K RAM standard built into the motherboard itself. 8K of that is allocated for video RAM. So the MC-10 was limited to 4K video RAM, which means you couldn't use P mode 3 or 4. This actually will let you do it. And if you're using a lower P mode, like a 1, 2, a 0, 1, or 2, you actually have enough video RAM to page flip. So you can actually do animation effects smoothly. And this is actually recorded in Italian. So I'll probably just mute it because Ron, do you speak Italian?
No.
Oh, okay.
I understand the words though. Hey, is this like wedge shaped? Do you know?
You'll see.
Okay.
Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti.
It's even got a
in questo
carrying
nuovo video sul
case.
mio
It's even got a
canale
red
YouTube.
matching cassette player that
Vediamo in
came
questo
for it.
filmato un computer francese molto particolare.
So you said
che
you
è
understand Italian?
dall'1190 prodotto dalla Matra e Hachette.
You said
È
computer.
questo computer qui che potete vedere.
Santa Maria.
Il computer veniva solitamente qui. Come potete vedere ha una forma
Red
molto
like a
particolare.
meatball.
So programmers of the MC-10, one of the
Yeah,
things that's always been
classico
complained about the
colore
MC-10 is the
rosso,
keyboard. So that's why a lot of people do the
tipico
development
anche del suo
on
predecessore.
cross-platform. You wouldn't have to with this. That actually looks like a pretty damn
E
decent keyboard.
appunto il Matra
Plus they have extra
1190 era
stuff on the
pensato per
keys.
essere il successore.
Well, yeah, I mean, the MC-10 had those keys where you could program the graphic blocks.
Yeah.
And those are all actually printed. It's kind of hard to see in this particular picture here, but those are actually on the keys. You can see exactly just like on the MC-10 what the blocks are.
And the brake key is on a weird side over there on the other side.
Yep, and you got your arrow keys on the upper right.
2 shift keys. That's nice.
So this machine, from what I was able to gather, came out in 1985 with 32K RAM standard and the 8K video RAM. So there's a bunch of improvements all the way across the board.
Era il clone 90. Notare subito che questo
There you can kind of
computer
see
era un
the
computer francese,
graphic characters.
in quanto il layout
And also the
della tastiera era
pre-programmed
AZERTY.
basic statements you could do too. For, 2-key hit,
Allora,
you get a
questo
special
computer
key.
qui è
Plus the
come
key, it'll do the word
Alice,
print for you without
Alice
having to type it
32,
in.
anche questo
Same as
è
Intel.
90 basato
Yeah, I
sul
think it's
processore
Control.
6803.
Who
Solo
made
che
it?
aveva più RAM rispetto a
Alice, it was the same guys that made the Alice in France. It's made in France.
So it was
Matra.
it was a
made it.
French
In particolare
company,
possiamo
was it?
vedere che queste
Yeah.
dimensioni
Look at that, size of the
piuttosto
board.
contenute e sono presenti i seguenti componenti. Allora, sicuramente vi è il processore, che è questo qui,
There's a 6803 right there.
6803. Dopodiché vi è
Oh,
la
oh.
ROM che contiene l'interprete basic,
RAM.
che è questa qui. Dovrebbe essere una ROM da 16 KB.
No, I'm not super familiar with the internals of the MC-10. Is this even close to the MC-10 circuit board layout? Or
Yeah,
is it
it's
totally
just
different?
rearranged.
Questo chip qui che è posto a
Are all
fianco al
those
processore.
resistors like
Questo qui
buffers?
è il controller video, il
Patrick?
generatore video.
Rick?
Dopodiché sono presenti questi tre
Wake up.
integrati,
What are the
1, 2
resistors used for?
e 3,
Right there above all the components.
che sono dei gate
That
array.
buffers?
You're muted, Rick.
Per chi ha familiarità con il
There were
Commodore
probably
64
resistor
potrebbero
packs on the
essere
big commercial
pensati come
boards
delle
instead of
sorta di
rows and rows and
PLA.
rows of individual resistors. So you wouldn't notice them. But yeah, just dropping to outputs and so forth. Current
What's
limit.
that?
Attenuation.
That'd be the RAM, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
150
RAM.
nanosecond RAM, it looks like. So 4 chips would be your 32K, 8K per chip.
Little symbol in most
Look,
of the chipsets.
look for the
Thompson,
little
if I remember
pad
right.
for 64K.
Oh, TI. There.
And here, I'll show you a bit what the case looks like, because you guys were wondering about that.
Not much socketed,
Yeah,
huh?
what's that big connector?
That's a SCART, isn't it? The video out?
Yes. Skype.
Oh, good. So was that composite or did it have SVO?
That was
or
RGB.
something?
That's what we use on the SCART
RGB,
adapters
yeah.
nowadays. That's raw
Yeah.
RGB, basically.
That's the MC-10 Tandy should have made.
All right.
Yeah, real keyboard. I mean, nobody had SCART in North America, but
No. But yeah, RGB. Cool.
I wonder if these are hard to find.
Multicolor.
I'd say so.
I would guess so, yeah.
But not in France.
But I'd say it'd be hard there too. Well, yeah, we've never seen them before.
Red reset button.
Yeah, there's your DIN connectors for the cassette and the printer.
Still no joystick, huh?
Weird case.
No joystick still.
I don't believe so.
No.
Some comments in the chat here. This is the last model in the Matra Alice computer series. The first was the Alice, second was the Alice 32. This is the third, the Alice 90. From M Meditation on YouTube. 6C, Karen says, the Alice 3290, according to Wikipoo, used a different video chip. Oh, I didn't catch that. And the connector has both composite and RGB on the SCART. So
okay. What video chip?
Well, he said it claims it's backwards compatible. Well, that's interesting. That is interesting.
That's
I didn't know anybody
interesting,
made
yeah.
any sequel to the VDGs, except for the T1. That's the only thing I know of.
Yeah.
It says right on there,
Okay.
it's ordinary.
Can you wind it back to the main board? Maybe we can see what the video chip is, unless there's a website that talks about it.
Yeah, well, according to 60, Karen, there's a Wikipedia entry for it, so I'll check that out.
Okay, I'll have a look.
It'd be nice to see if they have a monitor they would use.
Well, with the SCART adapters, like Jason Reichert sells, that those are SCART, so you can plug it right
Yeah.
into modern TVs with that.
Let's use the upscaler.
One might guess that they had a video chip that would do 50 to 60, so you could run the processor faster. I don't know.
There's Alice.
Just looking it up now.
That's a little basic manual it came with.
You see the computer's floating? It's an
Yeah.
optional,
This is the magic mushroom version, apparently.
evidently. You get 4 cassettes with it? Wow.
Yeah, there's a SCART adapter.
Crocky. Crikey? How do you say that?
Oh, it's crikey.
And these are games like for an MC-10 level machine I don't think I've ever heard of before. So apparently there's another software library that might be able to.
In the bottom along the side, you can pull out the hatchet.
Crocky.
This one's a 16K required for the Alice 32 or Alice 90. Or Alice, sorry. I said Alice.
The video chip is an EF9345. I wonder who made that.
You think it could be PAL?
I'd say so, or CCAM or
It's
whatever.
CCAM. It said CCAM on the bottom label of the Alice itself. Plus that was the standard.
It also said Pertel, which is the SCART.
Oh, there's a Wikipedia site. Looks like it was made by Thomson.
Yeah,
the
that's
video
that
chip.
symbol, little triangle symbol. It's all Thompson.
Yeah. Thomson made the video chip.
So how is it different than the VDG?
I don't know. I'm looking it
That's
up
what I'm
now.
wondering. Like, did it add extra modes or did it just clone it?
Did it have a green screen when it's booted up?
Unfortunately,
I don't
one thing he
know.
did not do in this video is actually turn it on, hook it up. I don't know if he doesn't have the right TV or what. That's the one part that sucked. But I've never seen an Alice 90 before. I've seen the Alice,
No.
obviously, but that's a new one on me. And it looks like if you wanted to get into the MC-10, this would be a perfect way to do it. Decent keyboard,
Yeah.
32K of RAM, 8K for video RAM, etc. Sounds like it's backwards compatible.
I'd like to
Not a
know
bad
what.
little system. Jim Gerrie
Yeah.
needs one of these, is what I'm saying.
It wasn't big.
Yeah, you can tell by his hand. It's not a huge machine, though. Alpha is a bit bigger than the MC-10. The original Alice was,
And
and
it
you
still
need
didn't-
enough room to fit that keyboard, obviously.
And it still didn't need a fan.
Kieran's mentioning RGBI output from the chip itself, so that video chip it supported RGB out. That's cool.
Yeah, built in. I wonder if it had more colors or any other.
Now, 8-Bits in the basement, who lives in France, I think, or is he in Spain? I can't remember. Says I could buy one here tomorrow, but it would cost me 200 to 300 euros.
Oof. That's pretty expensive.
So they are available there. How-
They're
how-
available
how-
everywhere.
Like Coco 3s, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about to say.
Yep.
Anyway, I found that as a fascinating video. So anybody who has access to any of those, if anybody can get a video of it running to see what's different on the VDG, if anything, or show some of the programs that required 32K that were written at that time in the 1985 timeframe, I'd love to see what they did.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're on to the Dragon. I've got 4 stories here. So the first one, Matt K sent some metal plate name badge replacements for Dragons to John Whitworth, who's doing some of the hardware stuff for the Dragon these days in the UK. And these include special ones. So you notice you've got a Dragon 32, you've got a Dragon 64, but you got the Dragon 64 Plus, and you've also got the Dragon 64 MSX2 Plus, which is the one we've shown before that Per Surratt and a few others have been using with as the MSX2 sound chip and the MSX2 sprite chip and the extra colors and everything else. So now you can actually get quasi official badges for your enhanced Dragon to put on it, so you know darn well what you're looking at when you show it off.
Does MSX have anything to do with the other MSX, like the one Japan made, or?
Yes, it's the sound chip and the graphic chip from that into a Dragon. It's an add-on board.
Okay, so what computers did they call them that had the MSX chip in it?
This is a new board. This is actually, we've covered it before on the show, Ron, that is currently in development. Per Surratt's been writing some software for it, etc.
Okay.
So it's like brand new stuff. It's kind of like their Gimme X for Dragon.
Right.
Second up, this was a really cool video I found just last night, actually, exploring the Dragon 32. Now, we found one of these a little bit earlier when kind of went through the history of the Dragon. This is a person that also grew up with the Dragon as a kid, but he goes into some pretty deep detail. It's 21 minutes, so I can't play the whole thing. Let's play a little bit of the intro here.
The Dragon 32. Priced at £175, or around £600 in today's money, it was based on the same Motorola MC-6883 reference design as the Tandy TRS-80 colour computer, known as the CoCo, which was released in the US by the Tandy Corporation 2 years previously. Not strictly a clone, as the ROMs aren't compatible, the Dragon shipped with 32K of RAM and Microsoft Extended Colour Basic as standard.
Got a good
with
collection of
expensive
machines
high-end
there, too.
options in the CoCo, and also a much nicer mechanical keyboard. It also featured a dedicated connector for the monitor, albeit composite only, which was lacking on the CoCo.
And he's got
in
that
later
VCR.
revisions. But they were certainly close enough relatives that the majority.
So he goes through and he goes through like the basic manual, and he goes through the fact that the cassette cable, how that works, and kind of shows you what the machine looks like itself. Goes through all the ports like you would expect. Taking a look at the massive power supply, going through the motherboard and explaining all that setup.
You know, I still have my own Tano Dragon, but I've tried to hook up my SDC to it. But once the Dragon basics are up there, I can't get video or anybody to tell me what the commands are to load programs in from a floppy, or to save them, or to
Yeah,
format
it's
them or
disk basic. I mean, it's regular basic is pretty darn close to the CoCos, except for the tokens are different. It's disk basic is completely different. It's not based. It's based on sectors, not granules. I mean, it's not even compatible in the slightest. So that you would need to grab one of the Dragon manuals to learn, because they have different commands. The structure of the disk itself is different too. It's very different. That's one place where the Dragon and the CoCo broke totally apart in different directions.
Hey, my internet's gone south again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm working in the red again now.
I'll try to wrap this up really quick then. You're still recording though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here he ordered the SDC, and he does, the jumpers for the Dragon, and actually kind of mentions how to get that going. He actually does his loading of test software here though from WAV files, and he gives some tips on setting that up to run it from a PC, which I won't bother replaying here. And then he just goes through some of the game demos that he remembers, like Chucky Egg, Manic Miner, and Jet Set Willie, which we've seen before. Backtrack, which he's actually pretty impressed with the 3D perspective on that one. Airball, which is kind of a cool game, though it's maddeningly hard, which seems to be a Dragon theme. Frogger, which of course we had in the CoCo officially, is a port 2. Rommel 3D, which of course on the PAL-based Dragon runs in black and white. We're used to seeing it with the artifact colors, but it still plays pretty well. And he was impressed with the 3D, and kind of goes through a little bit more. And then kind of what happened to the Dragon, it went bankrupt. Eurohard, which was manufacturing it in mainland Europe, kind of took it over, and then they went, under, a couple of years later type thing. So pretty good for a history of the Dragon, pretty good to show you what the Dragon is at the hardware level, some sample software games, etc. He mentioned some of the other things like OS9 and Flex that were available for it. So he definitely knows his stuff. So it's a very interesting video and well worth your watch. This just started here up yesterday. So Ian Hopkins posted up a picture, a blast from the past, as he called it. So this is him as a young lad with his Dragon 32 plugged into the living room TV by the looks of it with a cassette deck and stuff hooked up. And I thought that's a cool idea. And I know I've shown this before, but I have a picture of myself, back in 1982 with my CoCo 1. So engrossed that I didn't even notice somebody was taking a picture. And I just bought my first 2 cartridges. You can kind of see in the background, which I believe was Skiing and Project Nebula. But then some other people started joining in too. And so there's a few other pictures of people. Like Tony Jill mentions, this is back when he used to have hair. So he's using his Dragon 32 there. And this is, I don't know why that disappeared all of a sudden. You can see the shrunk version anyway. So that's around 1983. So I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't know how many the rest of you actually have pictures as a Ute, using a CoCo back in the day or a Dragon. But if you're in the member of the Dragon 3264 group on Facebook, if you want to contribute pictures to add to the, what we all looked like back in the old days, that's a pretty fun visit to the past there.
Geez, I was married.
And this, the last story here for the Dragon, last story for the news actually. So John Whitworth, who's been, like I said, involved with some of these hardware things, has also found the original Spanish manual for the Dragon 32, the technical manual. So for any Spanish speakers that, or Spanish is more your native language in English, want to get the specs for the Dragon, he's got it up on Facebook. You just download the PDF here, and I won't bother showing it because I can speak Spanish, but that's now available too. So it's more technical reference material. And that is the end of the news.
Hang on, no, there's one more. There's a video on YouTube that shows the Alice 90, and it does have extra graphics. I don't know if I could share it. I'll just send you in Discord a link to a video if you want to play that. Hang on.
Okay.
I've just sent it now.
Oh, in Discord?
Well, yeah, it's a quick one.
You could have done it in the chat we're in.
Yeah, but that means I have to think.
Yeah, why the hell would I expect that?
You're so honest.
Okay, so let me reshare then.
Yeah, play that. It's interesting.
Do you know if it had enhanced sound, or is that basically the same?
I don't know. Haven't looked that far.
Do they have sound in France?
Maui?
Oh yeah, that looks like 80 columns or something.
Yeah, take it to the start, very start of the video.
Well, this is the start. I haven't played. Start playing.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Comes
Well,
up.
it does
the
have
same.
the VDG screen. Cool.
Yep,
Yeah,
there it is.
It does.
And crystal clear RGB output on the SCART.
Yep.
It doesn't have the ratio properly.
That's because it's on
Well,
the
this
TV.
for PAL.
It does actually have colored text and higher density text modes as well. I saw in another video, but you might want to skip past the load time.
Oh, he actually does the whole thing? Okay.
I think he does. Yeah.
Rocky's that tape that was in the box.
There you go. Now,
Oh,
that
wow.
looks pretty
That's
different.
nice.
Nice and clear.
Well, it's probably a bit weird because he's running it on a widescreen display. That's why it's stretched.
Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't look stretched there.
They could change the.
Yeah, the aspect ratio on the TV from 16:9 to 4:3.
maybe.
4:3.
Yeah, that looks normal.
Sound sounds like stock sound though.
It does, doesn't it?
That's probably PAL width, right? It's a little bit wide anyway compared to what we're used to.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. But I wonder if the pinouts of this chip is different to the normal 6847 though. I don't know if it's
Is it the same number of pins, or is it
It is, but they're different. I had a
kind
look
of like
at
the T1
pinouts.
was then?
It's very different, more
It's
different
got
than that.
RGBI for one.
Yeah, it's quite different.
But yeah, that definitely looks better than the stock VDG would be able to put out.
Oh yeah,
far.
it was definitely a very upgraded 6847.
Right, count the dots.
Yeah, that's got to be at least a 320, I would say.
Yeah, it looks it. And black borders.
Right.
Wow. How
Well, there's
modern.
another game further down.
He didn't have the red.
I wonder if that's text mode.
Might be an 80com text mode.
Yeah.
Definable
And
character
there's
set.
the actual screen width there, I bet.
Yeah, see, that's more than 32.
But the borders on the side are because the new monitor is too wide. But the
Yeah.
actual screen width is to the things you can see.
And did that look like more than 8 colors?
It's kind of hard to tell. It's a little bit washed out.
Yeah.
But the fact you have a black background, you can put colors over top.
Well, there's some color.
Oh, yeah. That looks like graphics.
Green, blue, pink.
That's graphics mode, I'd say, not
Right.
text.
Right?
Pretty quick.
Yeah, that's not bad.
You keep thinking in your head it's a 6809. It's a 6303.
6803.
Yeah.
Yeah.
03, yeah.
That's not bad though. I mean, you had a real keyboard. You had some definite improvements in the graphics modes and text modes, obviously.
It's the MC-10 we should have had.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Exactly.
Boy, Jim Gerrie see this? He might go nuts.
Probably knows about
Well,
it.
Jim Gerrie's got a CoCo VGA in his MC-10, so he probably
Yeah,
has
but
more
this has
color
got-
capability than this does.
Yeah, but this has got better res.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you have settable palettes on the CoCo VGA, so you can do the 128, 192 with any
So-
4 colors you want, including
So
black.
does anybody
Yeah,
know?
but how many?
Does the 6308 have the same 16-bit thing? Like the
No, it's a bit
6809?
more primitive than the 6809s.
Oh, it is?
Anyway.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up there. As I hadn't seen any
Yeah.
of this. I didn't even know it had an
I've
extended
never heard of
VGA
that chip before.
Cool.
Nice.
All right.
There, bonus news for y'all.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. I guess next up is the updates and acquisitions. The only one I had on my list was Rick.
How are we doing on bandwidth?
It is falling off the bottom again. So I'm sure the people trying to view it is getting pretty jerky.
Cool. I'm glad I have a slideshow.
Yeah, I've been dropping to 0 for time. Looks like the best I'm able to do right now maybe is about 22, 23K.
No, yeah, well, as long as it's being recorded, we can post the unhindered version.
So Rick, are you up?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Let's see if this all works. Do I see the mirror effect? I don't see anything. So I'm going to see if this works or not.
It's all black. Ooh.
Do we have
Whole bunch of
storage?
archives.
Yep.
Check it out. A massive 50 megs of genuine CoCo storage.
Oh, yeah, that's the old primary drives from Tandy plus the actual Tandy hard drive
so
adapter.
How
here's
would
the
that
primary.
That would warm up your room.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Here's your
stackable.
primary.
And give you a hernia too if you got to
There's your
carry it. everywhere.
secondary. So I could technically get 30 megs online at a time.
So you could
Massive.
daisy chain those together.
Yeah, you
Yes.
could, this one has the Tandy controller fits into here,
Hmm.
and then this goes to your secondary drive, and then all the drivers were in the dev pack. So Tandy really you had to buy their cases, you had to buy the dev pack, you had to buy OS 9 because you wouldn't need a hard drive unless you were a developer, right?
I have a controller for it and the cable.
Steve Bjork famously had one of these because Tandy, I think, we arranged for him to get one as a developer, and he had 235 meg drives, like the later ones that Tandy did
Right.
on his.
A local doctor had this and ran his practice on it. Poor patients. But anyway, and then this week I've been working on the CoCo.io thing, and I've managed to really piss off a web server. Luckily, it's my local web server. Bad request. The browser sent a request that the server could not understand. But at least I got its attention and got it to talk to me back. So this is
Progress.
that a disto
progress.
4-in-1 there?
No, it's a yeah. Well, it's a disto something or other. I've got 3 or 4 of them. This is probably has the MEB on it, but not much else. But in any case, it makes my floppies spin, so that's good. And in the process of making the CoCo IA thing work, I designed this case, which doesn't require any fasteners and just snaps together. And in fact, there's little pads that you probably can't see that hold the board up from the bottom, and little pads that stick down from the top to hold the board down. So
you don't have to screw the board in; it just kind of floats until
it just kind of sits on the bottom pads and it sits on the top pads. And so when you snap it together, it looks like this,
and it's in the right spot,
or this, and it just plugs into the MPI as I did back here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. It just plugs right in. So I'm going to make this. Now I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to do this, because a FreeCAD pattern is almost impossible to modify. So I might just make an STL that doesn't have any cutouts in the top. So you can just grab your handy Dremel tool and make cutouts. And then you can drop any full-size board into it, just to kind of get a thing going. I've also drawn MIDI and long controller patterns in this. So as soon as I get that done, I'll throw them up somewhere. And if you need to make a case, you can print your own case and drop a board in it and have a party. Let's see. And that's
for those that are new to the show or have not seen it before, that board there basically is a 16550 high-speed serial port and an Ethernet port, correct?
Oh, correct. Yeah, I wish I could point. Yes, it's a 5100 Ethernet port and a 550 serial port. I don't know the best way to do a drive wire connector, so I just threw on level converters and a DB9 for now. And it's now very fashionable because the series of gate chips didn't work. So I have firmware that can be updated, or I can lock out something, or all of those cool firmware things you do nowadays. So that's kind of fun. And by the way, this is a prototype. This is the prettiest prototype I've ever made in my life.
Very cute.
Production.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, most of them, I should have racked up those slides, but yeah, my old prototypes were like drawn by hand and cut at home, and they turned green in about a week after you made them because they weren't sealed in any way. And
no smoke, huh?
Right. This thing, no smoke. It works in everywhere now, and I'm happy.
Cool.
And that's about all I've really got. Let's see. Now I can't get back to my other screen. Yes, I can. I can find it. Oh, and stop share. There we go. And that's where I am this week. Hopefully by next week, I will have a web server happy at me. Now, this is only just basic, so it's not really useful code, but it works well enough to make things work.
You can see that the unit works. So,
and hopefully some contributors like Mr. Overhorser here might come up with something to make it actually work.
I'm working on stuff already. I've got some good ideas trying to make it so it'd be easy to use from BASIC as well as from machine language, and hopefully act like a drive wire type, so you could just pass it drive wire type commands and have it just do it.
That would be cool. And then, yeah, of course, I'm pestering the US9 guys because they don't have anything better to do.
And Bill graciously volunteered his time to do it. So.
Exactly. So we're going to have to feed him some Mountain Dews or something. And what is his favorite stimulant?
Okay, Ron's Garage has an update.
Cool.
Oh, you do? Okay, here we go. Okay, go ahead, Ron. And
right.
We're getting a lot of wind noise from you, by the way.
Oh, I have a fan over my head. Anyway,
You need to go to the toilet, Ron.
no, I took my break. There's at Target, they had all these little game machines in little plastic cases. They're pretty cool. Galaga, Space Invaders, Tetris, Pac-Man, and it just each one of these is like $49 a piece, and I can throw them in my CoCo for free. And I did some stuff. Am I still on, or is this?
Yeah, you're on.
Frozen or anything? This is a CoCo VGA of the SRT Ghoul that Dodge is making. It's a 1,000 horsepower charger. I thought it was pretty cool. Put it up on High Color 2. And then you guys remember Music Match Jukebox? Used to put on your old machines. I found my version, put it on. It still works, even on a Windows 10. It was pretty cool. And then I found out how I could digitize like the CoCo did with the DS69. And when I did it with a camera, I got Microsoft Live camera, you know.
I think the internet stopped.
I could have.
I think our stream stopped.
Crap. Anyway,
zero too long.
I still see stuff. Oh, there's stuff on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Use
it
the low
stopped on Twitch.
latency toggle, blah, blah, blah. Exactly.
Yeah, OBS just dropped out.
well, anyways, how I do this is I video it, set the set the contrast way high and screw with the settings, and then do screen capture, and then throw it over to High Color, put it on the CoCo. It looks just like the DS69. That's it.
High color.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a better quality black and white. Yeah.
I like being last. And when they see me, they know it's over.
All right.
Any other presentations, or is that it for everybody on the panel? I just want to add, Nick found a link to the Alice 90 with some more details. I thought I would read out on the air here just so people kind of know what the machine was.
Sounds good.
So we mentioned the 32K and 8K video RAM, which is built in, the real keyboard, the direct SCART connector for doing the RGB out. It also had a 16K ROM, so it had the 8K basic ROM. It also had an editor assembler built into the other 8K, or at least the editor for it. It was basically the same 1 megahertz 6803. Now its video chip supported 64 by 32 8 colors, same as the VDG. Also did an 80 by 50 8 color.
Yeah.
And then in graphics modes, it had 160 by 20, 125 3 color, and 320 by 250. It doesn't mention the number of colors on there.
It's a very high vertical.
Yeah, well, the PAL had a higher vertical than NTSC to begin with. So, because what is it? It's 575 scan lines or so? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But didn't you say it had 80 by 50? You said text.
Well, who knows? That could be a typo.
Yeah, that might be
80
a
by
typo
25.
because that's very high.
Sorry, 80 by 50 is a graphics mode, 8 color graphics mode.
Ah, that's better. Yeah.
Text mode is 32 by 16, 40 by 25, 80 by 25. Sorry.
There you go. Yep.
So you had 80 columns built in, and then you had some higher graphics modes.
And I think it had the ability to actually overlay external video over the existing chip I saw in another website. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's got some pretty interesting capabilities.
Now,
There was actually a sequel plan, too.
Yeah.
Called the Alice 8000, but that was only made it to the prototype stage, and then, Metra kind of went under.
Which brings the issue of why did Tandy not do this? That would have been a good deluxe CoCo instead of what they were trying to do. They could have had a chip that was compatible with the old stuff and still had an upgraded video.
Right. A 6809 pushing that chip around might be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like this Alice 8000, the prototype one, there's a few prototypes that exist. Apparently it was when they started trying to shoot for PC compatible too, because it had 2 CPUs. It says a 6850, but I don't know if that's accurate because it's not a serial chip.
Probably 60050.
Yeah, maybe
68,000 base one.
Yeah, and an 8088 added, so dual CPU. They also were planning on putting in up to dual floppy drives with a monitor into a single case. kind of like a Model 3 style.
What does it say? What year that was being worked on?
84 to 85 is when the prototypes were made. Never got past the prototype
All
stage.
right.
Did you
That was
post the
about
link?
when.
Sorry, was that Mark?
Did you post the link?
It's on the Wayback Machine, but I can post it in the chat
I
because
haven't done it
Nick
yet,
doesn't know how
so-
to use chats that we can actually see.
No,
so-
that's right. I haven't had to think all this time. Why should I start now?
I just did that Three Stooges line about try to think, but nothing happens.
I have that actually. I think on the OU is one of the sound samples in the sound directory. I just wanted to kind of add that in because it was kind of interesting to get more details. And in fact, there was another sequel past that one that was planned but never came out. Anyway, if there's
Okay.
no other presentations to do, I don't know if we have anything else. I don't know if we need to do another ad and then wrap up final thoughts. I don't know if there's any final thoughts except the internet sucks today.
It's part of the show coming up.
Yeah. Why don't we just go ahead and just do the outro, and I can change this banner to 300 baud.
Yeah.
Optimist.
Right.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at cocotalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, cocotalk.live. CoCoTALK would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, Grant Leedy, James Diffendaffer, Jason Reichard, Jim Brain, Ken Reichard, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's imacoconut.com. The original CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever, people!
Okay. The tail end now. The caboose.
Barely there.
I think
Yeah,
the caboose is
I
going to
don't
fall
think
over
we'll
too.
extrapolate too long in that because the bandwidth's going all over the place and we don't want to cut it off again in the middle of the ending. So,
Well, we could have a 6-segment show.
so I will just say we'll see you all next week. Thanks for
Maybe.
handling all the crap we had to go through with the bandwidth problems here.
David-
We did have a local recording, so we will be posting a cleaned up version that doesn't have all the stutters and stops, hopefully. And we'll see you all next week.
And David, did you have a good day today?
Why, yes, I did, Nick. Would you like to join me for some excitement?
Not at all.
Okay, that's it. My day's complete now.
Oh, you're
Okay.
most welcome, Nick.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you next
Bye,
week. Hopefully
everybody.
without the bandwidth problem.
Bye, everybody.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's that off button?
It's still stuck on red.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I was watching on Twitch where you guys were doing that jerky thing, and I can't tell if that was literal or not. So.
For a while, we were at 90% dropped frames. In fact, it still hasn't even. It still hasn't even. Stop. It still hasn't stopped recording. Or something here.
Well, do you record it locally or do you record it over the net somewhere?
We're still recording
OBS.
locally.
Okay, good.
So let me go ahead and stop that.
OBS lets you record